Chapter 527 Spy, Not Spy. Special thanks to our new D rank patron at HolossageWolf. Patter 0 in bit. ly/4dx5dx. YouTube bit. ly/2dx3dx. Discord gg/gkckva7. Instagram at @Don_Dokmasi. Twitter at @Eldokmeasy22. Later that day, things happened at a rather strange pace. John delivered 7 assassins who made an attempt on him and injured Miranda. The clan heads and the businessmen of Winterhold attempted to conduct a hasty investigation, but not many results were found. Jelliner got news of the accident and dispatched 3 agents of Team Zero to investigate. A few traces were found about the 7 individuals entering Winterhold separately from 2 different locations the other day. Who they were and where they came from was still a mystery. John was feeling royally pissed for Miranda, sustaining a minor injury. These assassins were exceptionally skilled to a frightening point, as Miranda wouldn't have the ability to take 7 of them alone. The way they hid their presence and the skill they displayed, as well as the well-made weapons and the poison on the blade. They were just too damn ready. Who could have trained 7 like those? That was a question that clouded John's mind for a while. He closed his eyes and revised the moment again and again in his head. He was walking. Miranda was beside him on the right. He was pointing at some things and showing her around Sarthel before they headed to the tower. She leaned towards him for a bit, and that's when it happened, as he was distracted with her sensation against him. Pause. Isolate the distractive sensations. No wind, no sound, no feeling. Replay from the start again and focus on the motions of Magicka. John gave 3 commands in his mind space, making the image turn into a world of grids and numbers. A perfect image came for 7 individuals moving in an absolute unison, as if their minds were made to think as one. Perfect teamwork, good stealth. The 7 clearly were very close to each other, to the point where they can communicate with the simplest motions of their bodies. 1 from the front, 4 from behind, 2 on the buildings from each side. Arrows were shot as starting signals. No, not the arrows. The man in the front lowered his head down just a tiny bit, then the arrows were shot. That man was the leader. Young, almost the same age as John. He wasn't just the lead, but also a decoy. After the arrows were shot, 2 knives were thrown at John and Miranda, carrying a very faint and stealthy aura. Detecting 4 projectiles, John was already in battle mode. He deflected an arrow, pushed Miranda down. She slid forward towards the assassin leaders, throwing the knives, avoiding them and attacking him. John ignored the other arrow and evaded the knives as he locked on the archers, but all of a sudden, he was attacked from 8 different angles by the 4 assassins in the rear. It was the most beautiful and perfect assassination plan John ever saw. For projectiles were a decoy to cover 4 killing intents from the back, which came as 8 lethal attacks with skillfully made and enchanted daggers. Anti-magic enchantments, very dangerous. Anti-magic only works to cancel any magic protection, such as wards, armor spells, aura protection, and defense enchantments. However, the 8 daggers were useless against greed. Seeing the daggers being taken away, the assassins retreated, while at the same time, Miranda finished off the leader and sustained a scratch on her shoulder. The 4 at the rear didn't even blink an eye and turned their tail to run, but John wouldn't let that happen. As he went ahead to chase, the assassins realized he was catching up, so they spread out with their killing intent directed towards the civilians. Seeing that he won't capture them unless he makes a civilian sacrifice, John switched from capturing to killing. Nefertiti and Wrath moved in an instant, killing an archer and 3 from the 4 rear assassins. John chased one of the archers who was about to shoot a child and cut an arm, then teleported towards the last assassin, cutting his legs, but the assassin tried to fight and died. As John returned to capture the last remaining archer, he found him choking on his own blood with his throat slit and a dagger in his hands. Pause. John observed the look in the eyes of that archer and has separated his consciousness from his past image, contemplating and thinking. Why would anyone do that? Certainly not the fear of capture. Attacking someone like him comes with the risk of capture, but those people were following a program. Attack, if failed. Escape, if failed. Distract by attacking civilians, if failed. Take your own life. People who end up killing themselves do it for one reason, and that is desperation. Desperation from life, desperation for life, desperate for others' lives, and the list goes on. To train an assassin to such a degree requires a lot of time and ruthlessness. First, kill their self-worth. Torture them day and night until they lose hope. Second, plant the seed of hope in them by convincing them that you are their only hope. Third, tell them to kill themselves, and they will die without a question. Only monsters would make people do things like that. John wouldn't think too much about a low-life assassin killing himself, neither. It was the first time he saw such a thing, but now he thought deeply about it and listed his enemies in his mind, and nothing matched their style. He then thought of them being vampire thralls, but there are no mind control magic traces on them. The other bet would be the cultists of Mirok, but Solstheim is very quiet still. It was then when it occurred to him. A new enemy. Something that never appeared in the game. A story that wasn't told. Now that he thought of it this way, he finally started asking the right question. Who dares? Not a long list, but a thrilling one that includes all sorts of unknown variables. It can't be that everything will unfold like the game, can it now? John Hill. John opened his eyes all of a sudden as a voice called him from his state of deep thoughts. Father-in-law, you are awfully quiet. Just thinking, John replied, and took a deep breath as he saw the faces around him. I hope there are more results. He spoke. Not much, boss. We barely found traces of them entering the town. That's all. Further than that, we couldn't trace them on the main road. A Team Zero agent disguised as a dare trooper gave John a report. John skimmed through the report, then returned it. You can stop the search then. They seem to have been teleported from far away to someplace outside the city. They stayed for a long time in these locations until the traces of the teleportation magic faded away and then attacked me. John looked at the 7 corpses, then nodded. Give them burial in nameless graves with the rest of the criminals, but take drawings of their faces first. With the mystery being unsolvable, John looked around and spoke in a friendly manner. It is a shame this is how the day started, but thankfully nothing bad happened. I thank you all for coming today, friends and kinsmen. Having a more approachable air now, the others finally talked to him and introduced themselves and their sons and aides. Once that was done, John was guided by Sigurd to sit with the elders. The Great Hall was a Nordic stone hall with 2 long dining tables on the sides and a central one on a stage at the innermost area of the room, the place where the elders sit. John came from the side and tried to sit right at the edge of the central table, but Tyr took the place and told him to go further to the middle. Each one of his uncles refused to let him sit at the sides until he took the central seat, which was exactly between Tormund and Sigurd, the patriarchs of the 2 great clans. There was no leeway from sitting between his grandfather and his father-in-law, who both insisted that John would be in the center of the event. It is unusual for the 3rd generation to take the central spot like this, but if anyone deserved it in this room, it is only him. There were many reasons John avoided the center position. He liked being a leader in business and mischief, but not in war or governance. He is born under the stars of the serpent, and it is known that those who are born under this sign are the most blessed and the most cursed, a trait that disqualifies many from inheriting leadership titles. Either way, the Council of the Clans of Winterhold had to begin with John receiving the warm welcomes from all clan representatives who came to attend. Some may argue that this council is the true leadership of Winterhold, but the attending parties were smart enough to not act that way. This is simply a gathering of allied clans who share common interests. The true leadership is still that of the Jarl. If they were by any chance conveying the wrong image here, they may be taken as rebels towards the legal and rightful authority of the Jarl of Winterhold, which will give their political enemies a solid proof of incrimination in a court of higher authority. And speaking of political enemies, 2 dejected Imperials were cast off in a corner while the Nords were having fun talking shit about the whole world in general. Lord John, we already know that you are assisting the Dragonborn. Will we get to meet him at some point? Jarvan's son Harmon Blackblade asked. Let me correct you, please. We are all assisting the Dragonborn. It is our sacred duty as Nords. If a dragon decides to attack Winterhold, we can indeed ward it back, but only a Dragonborn can put down for good. That's why we will assist him in his endeavor to ward the innocents from the horrors of dragons. Whiterun did it, we will do it, and soon all of Skyrim will sober up from petty struggles to face one true enemy. Jon said, Well said, your lordship. The war and the dragons are more than what Skyrim can take, especially Winterhold. Orga Stormfist spoke, We have been building villages and towns for the past half a year nonstop for the poor refugees. The land is changing and new minor clans are even rising. That is a good thing, Lady Stormfist. We should focus on helping out kinsmen and even the outlanders who ended up here seeking refuge. Jon nodded. The ones Jon spoke to at first were the ones who needed to be assured that they are on his good side, the Bannermen. One of the themes of the Bannermen is how they address Jon as Lord. On the other hand, there are the Shield Thanes. Boss, Anji, my old friend, how are things? All right, boss. The seas are fair, and the ghosts were silent for the past 3 days. Don't know what upset them, though. Anjiam replied, while eyeing the Imperials. Ha ha ha. They are my ships, but it is your sea, my friend. I trust that your journeys to Vardenfell were successful. Jon asked, Indeed, boss. House Reduran has given us all the blessings, even though their taxes are a bit stingy. I can live with that. What matters is the new route. Jon and Anjiam were speaking about business regularly, but they made it sound interesting for the others. A new route means a lot of wealth, and everyone here is a merchant. Jon was simply making a teaser for the new trade route between Winterhold and Mournhold, two devastated cities that were once the capitals of their respective nations. Jon turned from Anjiam and looked at Alishka, another figure from the Shield Thanes. Alishka, be boss. Alishka stood with a worried face. The beautiful woman seemed to be concerned about her weight now that she had indulged herself in delicacies for the past 2 years. How does the money flow? Jon asked. It is good finally. After the war started, we had a shortage of everything, but now that Winterhold became more stable, it is all coming together back again. Just what I wanted to hear. Jon nodded for her to sit. Thanks, boss. The money is good. The trade is good. The next phase wouldn't even be suspected one bit. Now that Jon acted as the center of the gathering, he kept reviewing the issues in the hold and offering solutions of all kinds. He may have a reputation of being bloodthirsty, but his skill in playing city sims is never to be looked down upon. As the sun sat, Jon finally gave the signal, and the servants came in with hordes and hordes of food and liquor. Winterhold is now rich and fancy despite its hard nature. Quite the opposite of the game, of course. The Imperials dined with the Nords, waiting for Jon to address them, but he never gave them any attention. Everyone is fully aware that these are emissaries at the end of the day. It was until the end of the party when the female emissary was done with it. She suddenly stood up from her seat and walked to the elders' table area. Thane Jon Hild. She spoke. Jon had a goblet covering his face as he drank it all in one go and slammed it on the table. Now I'm tipsy. Go on, spy, Jon said, and the others around him laughed. Earlier this day, he was in a mode where he didn't give a skeever's ass about anything, and he called the emissaries spies. It was a bit awkward, but no shame about it. I beg your pardon, Thane Jon Hild, but we are not spies, the woman said. That's what a spy would say. Jon replied. It isn't. The woman felt Jon was not giving her any leeways, so she took a deep breath. My name is Julia Dio, and I am the legate of the Imperial Legion regarding diplomatic conversations. In other words, a military attaché with the rank of a lieutenant general, right? Still, at such a young age, impressive. Jon concluded. Julia narrowed her eyes from Jon's sharp observation. He hit the nail on its head pretty accurately. How did you know? She asked. Easy, Jon smiled. It is the lowest required rank to do negotiations. Also, your friend there is not the type to shut up around anyone unless they are superior to him in rank. Isn't that right, Legate Sulla? Seeing John directly speak to the other Imperial, everyone realized that there is something fishier than it should be. Even Legate Julia looked back at Legate Sulla with questioning eyes. Legate Sulla stood up and walked beside Legate Julia, glaring at John as if they were enemies from their past lives. John Dare. He spoke, greeting John, not minding the titles. It's been long. You two returned to Winterhold. Huh? John's familiarity with Sulla Trebatius was old, and their relationship was antagonistic against each other. Sulla Trebatius was the former leader of the Imperial forces in Winterhold, a man who overlooked the corruption of Jarl Career at one time and demanded many supplies from Winterhold at another while trying to make personal gains by treasure hunting around Winterhold. John always made sure that Sulla Trebatius doesn't get what he's after and got rid of him after the Battle of Winterhold. It is Legate Sentinel now, Legate Sulla said. Is that so? An underqualified Legate Sentinel and an unappreciated Legate Diplomat. You two make a terrible spy duo. John insulted the two bluntly, especially Legate Sulla, who kept himself firm just because of the mission he is on. Seeing John having fun, Legate Julia needed to address him directly once and for all. Thane Johnhild, you called us spies, then unappreciated and underqualified. Is there any way for us to clear that out of the way so that we can conduct official business? She asked sternly. See? Underappreciated. I am right. John pointed at her and laughed. You want to know how I knew? She remained silent, not confirming his words. All right, let's see. Your name is Julia Dio. Dio is your surname, right? That's not a noble name, so you must be a commoner. You are very high ranked in the Legion, being a lieutenant general at such a very young age, and you're even a diplomat despite being a commoner. Does it fit together? You can't have so much achievement unless you are deeply connected, but you are clearly unappreciated, which means you are not connected. Another contradiction. How do I know you are unappreciated? Easy, you were dispatched to Winterhold with that guy. Someone wants to see your diplomatic mission to Winterhold fail. So, a commoner Legate diplomat on a terrible diplomatic mission. Unappreciated is the right term. Wait, there is more. I can't stop at this point. There are two cases here. The case in which your surname is truly Dio, a commoner who climbed the ranks mysteriously. Only one division in the Empire would allow that to happen, and that is the Penitus Oculatus, the Royal Guard, and the spy network of the Empire, which eventually means you are a spy. The other case is that your surname isn't truly Dio, and my profile was wrong all along. Still, a false surname is very spy. John's terrifying profiling ability caused everyone in the Great Hall to be stunned. He didn't just see through the woman, but he completely analyzed every detail just from the fact that the surname she presented was that of a commoner. The crowd was terrified, and the two Imperials realized the fact that John Dare was playing them like children. Diplomat? What is that? This guy read them and understood the nature of their mission without effort. Still, Julia was terrified the most. This is amazing, Sigurd Moonblade exclaimed and looked at John. I mean, I knew there was something off, but I couldn't point it out. Wait, did you two think the same? Sigurd turned for Jonrad and Tyr, who cleared their throats and nodded while looking away. Of course. Naturally, John turned to them with a cold stare. Liars, he said. This. Jonrad clicked his tongue and looked dejected at John. All right, but there is something wrong with your analysis, son. And what is that? She can't be a Penitus Oculatus agent. It is a very strict rule that Imperial agents must not pose as peace emissaries, priests, or normal messengers. People must have trust in those three types, thus no agents are allowed to pose as them. Jonrad declared the loophole in John's theory. That's right. Legate Julia confirmed right away. Oh, please. This only means you're not a Penitus Oculatus agent, but it doesn't mean you're not a spy. Tyr said. But I am not. Hold up. John raised his hand for everyone to stop talking. His eyes moved too fast, as if he was looking for an answer in the surroundings, until he finally stopped and smiled in a nasty way. You guys will love this one, huh? He said and got off his seat. Dio is not your surname. You're not a Penitus Oculatus, and you're not a commoner, or even a spy. Let's see. You're an Imperial, not a Colovian or a Nibonese. You are half Imperial to your mother's side, but your other half is Breton to your father's because you are a tad short. The way you speak is refined, which may seem because you're a diplomat, but no, you grew up in high society, and it appears in the way you dress and walk. You indeed had connections that help you to rise up to the rank of a lieutenant general, which is not something any normal connections can do. The only reason for a person with your status to join the Legion is to gain experience or get away from the bloodthirsty Breton politics. You are royal blood. John laid it out plain and simple, then concentrated on Julia's reactions. North Point, Johanna, Daggerfall, where est Camlawait? It is Daggerfall. You reacted to it. John jumped off from his place and landed in front of the platform. Ladies and gentlemen, Princess Julia of Daggerfall is in Sarthel's Great Hall. Stand the fuck up. Where are your manners? John was at the peak of his satisfaction as he completely exposed the truth about Legate Julia. A Breton princess in an imperial clothing. Now, that is an interesting story. The princess, on the other hand, was facing the disaster of her life. Being exposed by a Nord politician like that was the worst-case scenario for an Imperial/Breton diplomat. What he said is true from A to Z. She is indeed a royal princess from High Rock, thus, she gained the rank of a lieutenant general as long as she works as a high-ranking diplomat and a peace negotiator away from the battlefield. She left Daggerfall to be away from the fight over the throne and to gain achievements in the Empire to secure herself a noble rank and not end up as a political wedding bargain chip the next king of Daggerfall controls. As she kept her identity a secret to prove to the others that she is well worth the position, it backfired on her by making her superiors feel suspicious, leading them to toss the hardest missions on the princess. The most high-profile diplomatic dilemmas in Skyrim are the Stormcloaks and Winterhold. In an ironic way, fate brought a princess to the Tower of the Dragon. I remember telling you to not take this mission. Yet from the other end of the hall, a familiar voice came sounding through the hall. An Imperial woman walked in wearing a very fancy and rich fur cloak on an elegant dress. She looked like a rich bimbo for an instant, but that was John's favorite rich bimbo. Vittoria. John and Princess Julia reacted to Vittoria right away. Hey guys, I was worried you'd be meeting each other, so I rushed here. The damage has already been done, right? Vittoria walked in the Great Hall in her fancy outfit until she stood between John and Princess Julia. John, this is Julia, my best friend who is not a spy. Julia, this is John, also my best friend who I told you not to meet. A pleasure. John nodded to Princess Julia, who dejectedly smiled back at him. Play nice then, okay, Vittoria said and walked to the side, sitting among the shield thanes. Are you done analyzing me? Thane Johnhild? Princess Julia asked. I'm sorry about it, didn't know you're Vittoria's bestie. Still, I was upset about those assassins to the point where I had to prove to myself I am still at the top of my game. I apologize, though. It's okay. Princess Julia nodded, but then her tone changed. My turn. She took out a sealed military scroll and brought it in front of John. Do you confirm that you are receiving the Imperial Declaration 851? She asked. I do. Proceed with the routine. John nodded. Princess Julia broke the seal and opened the scroll, then looked at John. He could feel a bit of anger in her tone and could see a nasty smile on Legate Sulla's face. By the supreme authority of our beloved Emperor Titus Mede II, and by the order of the Empire, the Imperial Legion declares the initiation of the state of emergency according to the Imperial Martial Law in the county of Winterhold of the province of Skyrim. The hall roared from the sudden declaration. A state of emergency means a worst-case scenario to a growing hold like Winterhold. It means the Imperial Legion is moving in and claiming what it wants. A lot of anger appeared all of a sudden as both the bannermen and the shield thanes were about to make a scene. Silence, John shouted. The uproar in the hall died down right away. John didn't show one emotion as he looked at the princess. Legate Julia, this declaration of a state of emergency is being declared in the wrong place. You need to take that to the Jarl. John said. It already has been taken there by another envoy. Also, the second part is about Thane John Hild and the Dare Dragon Company. Thane John Hild. John spoke quietly. Princess Julia wanted to continue, but the look on John's face made her shiver from the core. Either way, John wasn't really angry, or else everyone would have known. Regarding Viscount John Hild Firemain and his property, the Dare Dragon Company, we, the Imperial Command Center of the province of Skyrim, hereby command Viscount John Hild to submit his contract of exclusive exploit and benefit to the Imperial Legion as a contribution to the military effort. Signed by the Imperial Military Governor of the province of Skyrim, General Tullius. John looked at the princess and kept his silence. His silence was strange and scary. Those who saw John committing a massacre with his bare hands during the Battle of Winterhold were very familiar with this apathetic look. What follows that face is the most unpredictable actions John ever takes. He simply reached out to his side and took out a scroll from his satchel. He opened it and showed it to Princess Julia and Legate Sulla. "This contract?" he asked, simply pulling out the cornerstone of his business empire, like that was bizarre. Most people would treasure that piece of paper and keep it in the most secure location they can ever think of. "John Dare, this piece of paper is no longer valid for your use. Hand it over," Legate Sulla said as he tried to snatch the contract from John. John simply raised his hand higher than what Legate Sulla can reach and looked to Princess Julia right in the eyes. "It is funny, isn't it?" he said. "Funny? What does this madman find funny in this situation?" Everyone was trying to get any trace of John's thoughts, but he was already laughing so loud the whole Dare Tower was echoing with his voice. Some people even covered their heads to stop his voice from damaging their heads. Ha 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 ha. It wasn't just John laughing. It is the power of his Thursdayum already taking over his normal voice. Voice masters would actually get so strong, causing their normal voices to go out of control. John was on this ridiculous level. His laugh was fake, though. "Do you know what I think?" John asked Salik. Pathetic. To think that a piece of paper would force the Empire to declare the state of emergency. Ha 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 ha. John laughed even harder, and his voice was breaking those with weak wills. Legate Sulla was already on the ground, covering his ears as he was right in the face of the cannon. Princess Julia, on the other hand, was frozen in her place from terror. "Don't you find it funny, too?" John looked at one of the bannermen, who nodded like chicken and started laughing. "What about you? How funny is it?" John turned to the shield thanes, and they laughed hard, as if competing with the bannermen in laughter. "I don't think it's funny, though," John said, and suddenly everyone wasn't laughing. "Just messing with you. It is so much fun. Aha aha." John's laughter was akin to thunder. He laughed, and everyone laughed with him. A piece of paper forced the Empire to use its most critical law so that they can force themselves into John's territory and surround Windhelm and the Stormcloaks. John looked at the paper, then looked towards the gate of the Great Hall. "Don't you find it funny as well, Jarl Ulfric?" Chapter 528. Thank you and fuck off. Okay. So I decided to shorten the chapters from 4K words to around 3 to 2. 5K words like before, so I can publish more chapters to get more votes, views, and collections. Lords and ladies, we have 3 absolutely fantastic gentlemen in the Party D rank community. Say hellos to at Jack Richards, at Pookleberry, at Josh Wells, ly/2dx3dx. Discord, GG/GKCKVA7. Instagram at Don_Dokmacy. Twitter at Eldokmeezy22. Jarl Ulfric. Jarl Ulfric. Comprehension, question, and realization. John made no sense at first, but when a large cloaked man walked through the gate of the Great Hall with one warrior following him, everyone recognized Jarl Ulfric's Stormcloak right away. "It is very funny indeed, Thane John Hild." The unexpected visitor spoke out with his deep, powerful voice. "That's Jarl Ulfric, all right. Why is he in Sarthal? What is he doing here?" Seeing the Jarl of Windhelm and the leader of the Stormcloak Rebellion walk into the Great Hall caused a great stir in the hall. The man walked straight toward John, causing the firemen to feel restless. Just like John, Ulfric's Stormcloak is unpredictable and immensely powerful. As he stood in front of John, his presence caused Princess Julia of Daggerfall to retreat beside Vittoria, while Legate Sulla was helped up from the ground by two servants. Now, it is John Dare and Ulfric's Stormcloak all facing each other. Been long. John spoke first. Indeed, I like what you have done with the place. Sarthel is the origin of all Nords. Ulfric replied, making himself comfortable. It is not your first time here, and this is my turf. John replied with a wide smile. Huh, not going to argue, believe me. Jarl Ulfric smiled calmly as he raised his hands. Unlike our imperial overlords, I do not seek what is yours. John acted being taken aback and leaned forward closer to Ulfric, looking at him in the eyes. Really? John asked. MHM. Ulfric nodded. Damn, almost fooled me there. Ulfric looked at John with wide eyes, and John returned the same look. Then the two burst out laughing with two terrible voices. John's voice was clearly stronger, though. Welcome to Sarthel, Jarl Ulfric. To what do we owe the pleasure? John stood aside and led John towards the high table with the lords and the elders. Dragons, Jarl Ulfric replied as the seating of the large table was rearranged for Ulfric to sit beside John. Dragons, eh? I always told people about dragons, and now they finally listen. John said as he walked towards his seat. We would be appreciative if you could assist us figure out the size of this dragon crisis. Ulfric said after he greeted the lords and the elders. It is not small, I'm afraid, John said, and noticed that Princess Julia is also interested in the dragon incident and turned to her. But if you may, I was just finishing with our imperial friends here. Please. Ulfric politely nodded. Even though his appearance caused a big stir and is still causing, judging by how anxious Jonrad was, Ulfric showed utmost respect to the noble figures in this hall, especially John. Regarding the Imperials, however, John was finally giving them the last piece of his mind. Your Highness, I am sorry about earlier. Somehow, I don't really control my voice, especially lately. He said and raised his exclusive exploit contract in front of her. Now let's talk about this. Legate Sulla Trebatius and Princess Julia seemed to have been hit too hard by John's voice, as their senses were still going haywire. But there is no way they would ignore John like that. Everyone, this paper forced the Empire to play the state of emergency card and cost itself very, very dearly. It would be rude to not give them some face, right? John's words were filled with mockery and shrewdness. But Winterhold doesn't need to hide behind a mere piece of paper in order to stand on its feet anymore, for Winterhold is far stronger than that. Not needing it. Somehow this felt worse to the Imperials than what it already is. John had that casual winter smile as he channeled a tiny bit of his magicka into the paper, and rip. The most important piece of paper in Winterhold was ripped to pieces. It became no more. There is no longer an exclusive contract. There is no longer a monopoly for John Dare over Winterhold resources. None could predict this. Some are even ready to swear that John may trade an arm or a leg for this contract, but this is not the case as it seemed. You destroyed the contract. Legate Sulla was hardly believing what he saw. You just signed the death of your company. Fool. John looked at him with pity. What makes you think I needed that piece of paper? Did you perhaps think that every deep pocket in Skyrim would rush to Winterhold so that they can compete with me for the riches of the hold? Everyone will. Sulla Trebatius insisted. I know. The Blackbriar, the Silver Bloods, the Shatter Shields, or maybe the Imperial Guild of Commerce itself may push a horde of businessmen and wealthy individuals towards Winterhold. And they'll cause me to go bankrupt? Is that what you're thinking? Bitch, please. You? Me? I'm John Dare. Did you think for one moment that I don't know what you were up to from the beginning, Sulla? You won't find the treasure you seek. You will enter the ruins you were always looking for, and you will die. What about me? I will be here in Winterhold waiting for you idiots to do me a very big favor and attract the heaviest purses in the entire continent to my doorstep. I won't be doing any monopoly, but Winterhold will achieve diversity and wait, it already did. John spread his hands left and right. Look around you. See the people on your left? These are some of the richest Nord clans. See the people to your right? These are some of the richest individuals that I made very, very rich. Do you know why these people are gathered here? To welcome me? Maybe. To eat with me? Possibly. But the real reason these people are here today is because of money. Investment. Don't you see? Everybody here is rich, and once any piece of land becomes free, they have the right to invest in before any foreigners. But all of a sudden, you Imperials made us even richer by bringing a large amount of money to us, which we will accept as investors as well. Legate Sulla, I am deeply thankful for this grand opportunity you presented Winterhold. Truly, thank you and fuck off. With the end of the DDC monopoly, the real new phase is investment, and Winterhold needed new blood and money. John aimed for diversity from the start, and as he used his previous act, as if Winterhold contains boundless treasures only he was allowed to dig up so that he can attract more attention, everyone now is attracted to Winterhold, where there are hundreds of opportunities. John even had his first patch of investors ready and waiting after they ate his famous mind-numbing kebab. He really needed a method to end his monopoly and advertise for Winterhold, but who knew the Imperial Legion itself will be doing the advertisement for him, no charge required. John was also done with Legate Sulla after foreshadowing his future. In truth, Legate Sulla found proof that there exists a long-lost Dwemer city under Winterhold, and he coveted the discovery from himself only to end up sending a group of poor people to a horrifying and painful doom. The player can always encounter Legate Sulla Trebatius in the deepest parts of the ruins of Alftand, fighting the last of his companions over the credit for the discovery. Now, the only one left was Legate Julia, the Princess of Daggerfall. Your Highness, you are welcome to stay in Winterhold for as long as you like, considering you are the princess of a friendly nation, but please deliver a word to your general. Next time he wants something from me, he better come himself. After the Imperials left, many people wanted to hear John's thoughts about the dragons, but he dispersed them to meet Ulfric Stormcloak. It was evening now in Winterhold, and Sarthel was lit by torches and mage lights. In the Dare Tower middle section, the quarters, John was brooding at a window, listening to a report from Jelliner. That's all for today. Good job. Make sure that our friends understand what they are investing their money into. They are regular investors in the gold's resources, not investors in my company. They should also wait until the company gives them the money they need. John said, Alina was thinking of opening the company for investment, but you seem to be strongly against it. Why is that? Joel asked. I'm old-fashioned and I don't like trusting investors. My money, my business. I supervise the hold's assets and know its secrets better than most. Leave the farming, mining, and quarrying for our friends. I want to play the bigger trades. Magic and industry. Indeed, alongside finance. I still monopolize more than 1/3 of the hold after all, with the Firemans and the Moonblades being the biggest investors after us, followed by the Shield Thanes and the Bannermen. I feel very comfortable about our position. All right, other than that, we have already gathered all the dirt we have on Legate Sulla Trebatius and will present it to the Imperial Legions from various sources. Once he is completely screwed and dishonorably discharged, we will discharge him for good. Sounds like a plan. Can I keep his head? Stop acting like a child. John flicked her forehead, and she smiled. Where is Alina? He asked. She will be here. Hoopsie daisy. Our time is up. Your guest has arrived. Joel retreated after stealing a kiss from John, then opened the room's door. Ulfric Stormcloak was standing there with his bodyguard looking at her after he was guided in by Wulfur. The room was simply a small cafeteria, fancily decorated unlike anything in this world, with a bar, many bottles of liquor, and an access to the roof of the Great Hall. Ulfric didn't really understand how John designed this strange tower, and truth be told, neither did John. The tower's ultimate purpose was to act as a pedestal for the Elder Scrolls, but its lower section became a great hall for important events. Its middle section became a social club for the high society of Winterhold called the Quarters, while the upper part was a great library. Jarl Ulfric, it is nice to see you. John welcomed him. Thane John Hild. Ulfric greeted him back. Please have a seat. John and Ulfric sat down and started lightly chatting while Jelinar, Wulfr, and Ulfric's bodyguard were on standby. The situation was stiff, but John and Ulfric acted casually. John ordered 2 goblets and a large bottle of wine from the bars nearby, then poured it and put them between him and Ulfric. Silently, Ulfric observed the goblets and looked at John distrustful. John giggled while shaking his head and held each goblet, once taking sips. Fine stuff. As he put them back on the same distance between him and Ulfric, the latter smiled as well and picked the one on his left. Cheers, then. Cheers. The 2 drank their wine and looked at each other once again. How was the war? John asked. For Skyrim, Ulfric replied. Not for its sons and daughters. For them as well. What about Talos? For Talos. An honor? John asked. Ulfric paused and looked in his goblet. There is no honor. Told you so. John couldn't help but say that. The Empire had enough with you. I will be blunt, John. Join me. Ulfric said. You? Not us. Fine. Join us. John looked at him and smiled. There is no point convincing me. You can ask Jarl Career. I spoke to him, and he agreed. Ulfric said. And Ulfric narrowed his eyes. He is your Jarl, and you won't join us? No. Ulfric and John reached a stalemate without even being bothered by the other's attitude. Maybe Ulfric was bothered a little, but he drank it over either way. Don't you want the war to end? Ulfric asked. I do, but if I joined your war game, thousands will die. John said. You still hate war. I do. Call me a coward, I won't mind it. And you think the Imperial Legion will respect your wishes? You've seen what they try to pull off. Ulfric was finally triggered, and they saw what I can do. You're no longer the demigod from the battle that day. They want to make sure you don't become that again. Sure, they would be fools if they let me be. John said. Then again, are you saying that I must be a demigod to scare the Empire? Am I a joke to you? John asked, half kidding, but his words were right on spot. You showed them well today. But what of tomorrow? Will you ward the Empire of Winterhold forever? I can. Actually, I did, John said and smiled. General Tullius made a dick move with me. Now he knows that he will be rendered dickless if he tried any dick move ever again. How so? Imagine a general of the Imperial Legion declaring the state of emergency, then failing to achieve his goal in the end. He wanted my contract. Why? He wanted it as leverage. How? He thought I would do anything for him if he takes the contract from me. Now there is no contact, no leverage. What about Winterhold? Richer each second than the one before it. The general? Let's see if he can set 1 foot in Winterhold. But Jarl Career, he supports you. He will send you his men and his money, and that's all. My deal with Jarl Career extends beyond a mere contract. I build houses, move ships, offer services, make jobs, organize lives. Supporting you is a luxury for Jarl Career. Supporting me is what basically keeps his hold together. In other words, whether Jarl Career supports Ulfric or not, it means nothing. Winterhold is part of the old holds. Actually, it is the oldest hold. As a wounded hold that is still being rebuilt, this place will be an asylum for anyone who wants to keep away from the war. The Empire will soon give up on me, and so will you. Either way, the result of this war doesn't even matter. John had a great insight regarding the War of Skyrim, and he understands how it eventually ends. He didn't need to worry about joining it or not. Ulfric could see through John and how he viewed this war as meaningless. By that, there is no longer a need to press any further. John is neither an ally nor an enemy. He at least can be a friendly neighbor. Ulfric sighed as he no longer needed to pretend. He was indeed frustrated. Still, John had a piece of his mind to give Ulfric. You fucked up big time, he said. You think so? Ulfric asked. I know so. You kill my friend. John replied. Torrig? He was weak. Ulfric became disdainful. Weak? Yes, he was. Annoyingly so. John agreed. He could have done a lot of things, but he wasn't the right king for such a period. Maybe. Ulfric didn't agree or disagree. The two became silent in a heavy mood for a while, until finally Ulfric brought out the final topic. Dragons. Yes, something fun to speak about. John also wanted to not speak about politics. Fun? Have you seen a dragon up close? Ulfric was outraged by John's statement. 3 times. John replied. You've seen the one in Hell, Jen? Ulfric asked. You have no idea. John laughed and nodded. John Dare, from what we know, you're the only expert about dragons, and you even know the dragonborn we heard about. You heard right. John confirmed. I stumbled upon a certain prophecy a long time ago, and I knew there will be dragons. And congratulations, Jarl Ulfric. You have survived the world eater him very self. Now, let me truly tell you about them dragons. Chapter 529, The Princess and the Lawyer. Big thanks to our newest D-rank patron at Mrosum69. Patter0n bit. ly/4dx5dx. YouTube bit. ly/2dx3dx. Discord. GG/GKCKVA7. Instagram at @Don_Dokmacy. Twitter at ldokmeasy22. Ulfric walked out from the Dare Tower with some heavy expressions. What John told him made him think twice about the war he already started. The World Eater Alduin devours the souls of the dead in order to attain his former power and bring about the end of the Culpa. It didn't make any sense, but John wasn't lying either. Ulfric would have known. The problem is that Ulfric can't believe John because Ulfric is a Nord and a believer of the old prophecies. Other than that, the Imperial would probably never believe these prophecies and will wage war against Ulfric either way. Ulfric also can't afford to stop the war like this. My Jarl, what shall we do? Ulfric's bodyguard spoke. The war continues, and the dragons are to be avoided once spotted. Ulfric said. In Winterhold, Ulfric stood in the main street of Sarthal and looked back at the tower thinking of what he heard. If you think about it, John Dare may have a wild temper, but he never really gets angry. He only acts. Ulfric said. Acts. His true face is always kept for himself. He doesn't trust people easily, and he didn't let any outsiders in his hold unless they were under his control. Lucky for us, Jarl Career is on our side, and unlucky for the Imperials, General Tullius couldn't make friend with John. Ulfric smiled and began walking away. His trip to Winterhold wasn't a victory of a loss, but rather a mind-opening one. He asked for John's cooperation with the dragons and promised to support the Dragonborn. As Ulfric walked away in a good mood, others were in a messy situation, and these were Legate Julia and Sulla. Their mission was a sure success, according to the information they had on John Dare, but for some reason, Legate Sulla's involvement proved to be a bad influence on the operation as he rushed it because of his personal grudge against John Dare. In truth, the command center of the Imperial Legion may have also wanted them to fail, so they allowed Legate Sulla to go so that John Dare may assault him once his contract is confiscated. Legate Julia was also to be blamed for this failure either way, as many officials thought a commoner like her shouldn't be one of them, not knowing her true identity that took John a few minutes to figure out. Even though an excellent diplomat, Legate Julia always had to go through unfair treatment. John saw Legate Sulla with her and called her unappreciated right away, knowing that she was sent to be a scapegoat. Right now, Legate Julia was about to have an audience with John Dare once again, but in the meeting room up in the quarters, the surprisingly lavish social club of Sarthal. The tower's interior is exactly like that of the Buildings of Solitude. The rooms are fancy and the hallways are wide. However, after taking the stairway up, the quarters proves to be a bit of a maze. This place was probably designed to receive high-profile guests and trap spies and intruders. Still, nice service and clean interior, nothing like the old castles and palaces. There, John Dare was waiting for Legate Julia with 2 women, Jelena and Vittoria Vici. Oh, Princess, join us please, Your Highness. Thank you, my lord. Legate Julia sat exactly where Ulfric sat, right opposite to John. Vittoria was on a chair really close to John, and Jelena was standing behind him. Legate Julia was knowledgeable about Jelena, a very high-profile individual in John's entourage and probably his most loyal retainer. Some rumors about them being lovers, but the most important piece of information is that Jelliner is probably the key figure behind John Dare's secret force, the one called the Black Pigeons by the other agencies. I hope that your highness has found the accommodation to your liking, John said. Indeed. Thank you for the hospitality, my lord. And please drop the titles with me. I am but a legate diplomat on official business at the moment. Julia said, All right, Lady Julia. Please excuse my enthusiasm. It is just that I have met queens before, but I haven't met a princess just until today. An official one, I mean. John apologized and excluded many characters in that past sentence. I see. Julia replied gently as a servant poured her wine and retreated. So, Vittoria here told me how good friends you two are. Never expected it, to be honest, but to make my standing clear, any friends of Vittoria are friends of mine. I apologize for my behavior in the hall earlier. You see, I am not the kind to take well to threats, especially in public. John said. Julia took a sip of her drink and exhaled. Lord Johnhild, I am sure that your intentions about staying off the war are noble and to be admired, but the Empire won't take lightly to— What did I just say about threats, my lady? This is not a threat, my lord. It is a fact, and right now, the Imperial Legion considers you to be completely out of control with a huge potential for disaster. Cooperating with the Imperial Legion is in everyone's best interest to withstand what is to come. Princess Julia dropped the act and spoke bluntly. Her mission is already a failure, and John exposed her true identity that she put a lot of resources into concealing. He may be a wild card and all, but she had every urge to punch him in the face at least once. Well, that is regrettable then, John said and made a sad face. I was hoping to convince our friends from the Imperial Legion to withdraw from Winterhold while they still can. Withdraw. Julia couldn't comprehend what John was trying to say. Currently, the Imperial Legion sent a declaration of a state of emergency in Winterhold, and this means they can move in with bigger numbers and throw all their weight. Julia, please listen to what John has to say. Vittoria spoke. What? It is regrettable, but I am honest when I say that I am very sad to inform you that earlier this morning, Jarl Career met with Jarl Ulfric Stormcloak, and the two reached an agreement after your Imperial colleagues dropped the declaration over there. I have sent my brother Wulfr to Fort Castav so that he may inform the Legion force over there of the change of policies and help them to swiftly retreat. John kept speaking in a formal tone, but Legate Julia has lost him somewhere amidst the chaos in her mind right now. Winterhold, it moved to the Stormcloak camp. Until this morning, Winterhold was still considered to be in Imperial territory. The moment the Imperial Legion declared the state of emergency was the same moment they were kicked out and had to retreat right away. If news of this reached Cyrodiil, General Tullius' reputation would turn into an absolute joke. And there is no way to stop it at the moment. As you can see, it is truly regrettable. John finished what he was saying and looked at Legate Julia, who was no longer calm. Regrettable? Legate Julia asked in disbelief. As I said, it is the Jarl's call, not mine. John said, Are you kidding me? You are the one who is controlling Winterhold. The Jarl listens to you. She said, Are you by any chance suggesting that I am the de facto ruler of Winterhold? Lady Julia, this is a very serious crime you are accusing me of. John said, Are you being serious right now? I'm being very serious at the moment, my lady. There are a lot of things you misunderstand about me. I'm not the puppet master you think I am. I am indeed very rich and very able, but my role up until today was to act as the monopolizing investor of the major resources of Winterhold. My deal with Jarl Career was to make economical and social reforms in the hold in exchange for property and rights. My political role in Winterhold was to act as the Jarl's advisor, and my military role was to act as a thane. As for being an investor, you've completely ended my monopoly by forcing me to tear up the contract. As an advisor, I advised Jarl Career not to join the senseless war until you came to his doorstep with your brazen declaration of a state of emergency. As a thane, I am bound to the will of the good people of Winterhold. Until this very moment. I haven't broken any law or upset any divine. My imperial constitutional rights protect me, and if you want to take it to a court, I am very happy to play with you till the end. Other than that, and as a citizen of the Empire and the proud kingdom of Skyrim, I am heartbroken to see the peace I worked so hard to maintain crumble this way, and what saddens me more is that I know that I was stabbed in the back by the ones I tried to keep from bloodshed. I've already filed an official complaint to the Elder Council and the Emperor through various connections. Vittoria here has already guided me through the whole legal process. John laid out his threat, and this time, there was no escape from the way he slapped the Legion back. As a diplomat, Legate Julia didn't only fail her mission, which was mostly bound to fail, but ended up returning to her superiors with a curse that will haunt the members of the Imperial Strategic Center for the rest of their careers. John even started beating the dead dog and complained about the Legion to the Elder Council of the Empire, the highest authority on Tamriel. Julia looked at John and didn't know what to do. She then turned to Vittoria with glares. Don't blame me. I tried to stop you back at Solitude, remember? If you have given me more time, I could have worked something out with the general. Do you have any idea how that move the general took may have cost us? 20% of the East Empire Company's interests exist in Winterhold, and the Dare Dragon Company is the only trading entity that can safely conduct business all over Morrowind. There are things we can't simply afford. Vittoria defended herself. Legate Julia was looking at the pair of snakes with no more tolerance for their bullshit. She knew very well that John Dare has the ability to influence the Jarl, but he just didn't do anything either on the positive or the negative side, which can't be held against him. Legally, he is the most innocent person in the room. He is even tipping off the Legion to withdraw before their supply line is cut from Winterhold. Damn you to oblivion, John Dare, Julia said as the stress was killing her. Yeah, been there, John sarcastically replied. I understand your frustration, and while I want to gloat over the blunder of General Tullius, I want to offer something as a sign of good faith. Julia looked at him doubtfully and replied, The Imperial Legion will hold an endless grudge against you. Whatever you do won't be enough to appease the Legion at this point, Julia said while looking away. Fuck the Legion, John said. Julia silently looked between John and Vittoria, feeling something awful at play. Vittoria, you are the Emperor's cousin. This man can't be, Julia spoke angrily. Oh, please. Julia, are you listening to yourself? Vittoria stopped her from continuing. By now, the Legion will realize that they messed up big time, and you guys from the Strategic Center will face the consequences for the whole thing. John wants to offer you a way out here. Do you think we will act like you traitors, always switching sides where coins are? Julia slammed her armrest. The Legion is causing more harm than good with its current policies, and you of all people know that without the East Empire Company's money, you guys wouldn't have survived over a month. Vittoria replied. The relationship between the EEC and the Legion seemed to be worse than John anticipated, but the worse it is, the greater the reward from what he has in mind. Princess Julia, let's calm down for a moment here. You haven't heard my proposition yet, John said. And why would I accept anything you say? Julia asked. I understand that on a personal level, your relationship with Vittoria is quite good, John said. Julia looked at Vittoria disdainfully before nodding. She can be too much most of the time, but yes, we are best friends, Julia said. Then, are you by any chance interested in saving your friend's life and gaining the favor of the whole Colovian states at the same time? John asked. Saving her life? Julia looked at Vittoria, who by her part was making a troubled face. John intercepted an important piece of information that there is someone targeting me. Hold on a minute. Targeting you? Are you serious? You're the Emperor's cousin and the one in charge of the EEC in Skyrim, who is not targeting you. Julia lashed out. I'm afraid this will be coming from the Empire itself. Someone with a lot of money and a seat in the Elder Council will go after Vittoria. John said. How do? Vittoria, you are not believing him, right? This man is bluntly saying that there is a traitor in the council. I didn't point fingers at anyone. I just happen to know a guy who knows a guy who knows another guy. The information is legit, though. John said. I trust John, Vittoria added as she grabbed John's hand. Julia looked at their hands, and her eyes widened, looking between the two, as if she had lost a few brain cells in her most recent realization. You two, you're sleeping together. John and Vittoria looked at each other and laughed. Duh, everybody knows. Like, it has been forever now. John and Vittoria have been having an affair for 3 years, and she can be considered the only outside affair Alina barely approved. But you're getting married soon, Julia said. It is just business. John and I are serious. Julia was baffled by Vittoria and John. Marriages are business? Affairs are serious? Remind me again why I left Daggerfall. Julia requested more liquor to drink as she needed to process the current situation. She looked at John Dare, and the only thing she could think of is a devil. A devious and dangerous businessman, an influential and sly statesman, a powerful warlord, and a dangerous mage. He was ignored long enough by the Empire, and it became impossible to contain him now. Not only his power was frightening, but he had too many talented people and endless resources around him. Controlling him was impossible, as he deepened his own pockets and extended his reaches, making himself a necessary person in every field. He killed, stole, cheated, and fucked his way to power. The last attempt from General Tullius to contain him ended with a disaster. Of course, John had Vittoria on his side, so the plan was bound to fail even if his friends in Solitude hadn't tipped him off regarding the plot against him. What the Imperial Legion wanted to do was to take the exclusive exploit and benefit contract from John by martial law and keep it with them to threaten John and order him around. Supposedly, John would have wanted to preserve his company, so he would agree to help the Empire defeat the Stormcloaks. General Tullius had a more sinister idea, and that is to use this chance to make the Penitus Oculatus investigate John's illegal intel gathering organization, the Black Pigeons, and use their existence to charge John with espionage, completely discrediting him and pushing him completely out of the political scene. That devious plan would have certainly worked any day of the week, except that John didn't really need the contract anymore. All he did was to tear it to pieces and end his monopoly. He then opened Winterhold for investment. With so many people in the hold that became rich thanks to John, he already had his selected and loyal investors ready and waiting. The Legion? Julia can no longer see anything good happening in that direction. John completely obliterated them. Now, he's playing the devil and giving her an offer she can't possibly refuse. Before I agree to anything, answer one question. Julia said, "What are you?" "Me?" John smiled. "I'm just a lawyer." Chapter 530, The Real Army of John Dare. Hidden Dragon Isle. Stretch left, stretch right, back stretch. Arms stretching, fingers cracking, neck cracking, flexing muscles so everything else started cracking. Now all his body felt loose and comfortable. To clarify what happened, those are the waking up rituals for a certain Dragonborn, John Dare. The man who can crack each and every joint probably. The sun was warm and refreshing, and the maple forest around the golden pavilion moved with a nice breeze. Looking behind him on the king-sized bed, there were 4 beautiful ladies soundlessly sleeping. He smiled proud of his performance last night as he took on those 4 beauties all at once until he managed to put them all down. Alina, Joel, Miranda, and Vittoria. It was a celebration for foiling the attempt of the Imperial Legion to try to control the DDC. Even though Vittoria is the cousin of the Emperor, she was a businesswoman after all, and the survival of the DDC meant a lot for her. The Imperial Legion has always acted roughly, with the company demanding a lot of supplies and causing the EEC to give up many ships. If the general's plan to take over the DDC was a success, Vittoria wouldn't have managed to cover the consequences, and the prices of essential goods in the new holds would have skyrocketed to an insane ratio, the problem which the Legion always dumps at the company. Either way, the situation went safely, and the only loss was Winterhold officially taking a stand with the Stormcloak Rebellion as a reply to the brazen state of emergency. In truth, Jon had nothing to do with it, nor he even cared. It was 100% the decision of Jarl Career. Jon has stopped messing with the Jarl's mind after he kept Career in a hypnotized state for a couple of years using the Helm of Winterhold. By bending the Jarls through a very long Thursday session, the Jarl became very docile toward Jon and the mages, but still kept the dignity and the attitude of Jarl. As Jon left for 2 years, Alina was monitoring the Jarl situation as he slowly became the perfect version of himself. Either way, he seemed to have started favoring the Stormcloak cause, just like in the game, and agreed to switch sides once he caught wind of the state of emergency. With that, Jon could distance himself from general war politics while advising the Jarl to not be drawn into the conflict. Of course, if any battle were to happen in Winterhold, Jon would step up and stop it himself if needed. Alduin is already being fed too many souls as it is and can't be given more. Jon walked out of the pavilion while thinking of the next step to take. The Imperials won't retaliate right after this loss for some time, and the Stormcloaks are already in a good mood. It is the 5th day since his arrival, and no news of dragon activity around Skyrim from the agents he dispatched. That looks yummy. From behind him, a presence came slowly, but he intercepted it quickly. Holding her hand, Jon looked at Joel, narrowing his eyes. "You woke up good." Jon pulled her closer and asked, "How is everything in Rift Inn?" "Rift Inn? It is fun. Just fun." You got me." Joel laughed. "I've had my own fun in Rift Inn. Just a little bit, I swear. There is that guy I want to murder. So our murder type. What does he do?" He stared at me in the eyes for 3 seconds. "What's fucking wrong with his head? He even told me he want me on his crew. Fucking asshole. I was about to take his head before your friend Delvin told me." "It was the guild master, wasn't it?" Jon asked. "Yeah, the guy thinks he's crazy or something." All right. Mercer is a son of a bitch who always tries to bring ruthless thugs and homicidally insane people to his side." Jon said. "You mean these cute guys acting all scary? A blade between their legs always gets them in their place." Joel said playfully. "Oh, my second wifey grew so sadistic, I see. Should I be afraid?" "Bitch, please. Miranda told me that she tried to kick you in the nether first time she met you, and it broke her leg. You think I would sacrifice a good blade like mine?" Jon and Jolinar walked inside the forest away from the center of the island alone. He enjoyed hearing her complaining about every single thing. And after all that Argonian bitch got herself captured. For God's freaking sake. I either had to murder our way out or leave her behind and run. So infuriating. I had to run. Old man Delvin would nag me to death if I killed someone on a smuggling operation. Imitating Delvin, it is bad for business, he says. Are you guys serious? And what is worse is that gal Vex. She has a stick so high up her ass that she can't see shit. Jon took all her complaining with a wry smile, knowing exactly what she is talking about. He pacified her after she let the stress out. It's okay, but you understand that I need you out there in the Thieves Guild. Once everything starts happening, you should be there in the heart of the events. Jon said as he relieved her stress by massaging her temples. What events? She asked. It is something that you have to figure out on your own. Remember that there are some certain situations that need you to act accordingly in order for our plans to come together. Jon said, Wait, Wulfur and Alina, you also gave him assignments similar to mine. Wulfur joining the companions and Alina teaching in college. What are you planning? She asked. I said figured out. Jon flicked her forehead after he was done massaging her. Ouch. So, is there any news with the assassins from yesterday? Jon asked. Nope. We hung their drawings somewhere and waiting for identification. I think we'll hit a dead end, though. I don't like it. Something's telling me we haven't seen the last of those assassins. Either way, I'll be heading to work, you wake up the girls, and if there is anything important, I'll be in the office. Jon said, kissed her, and teleported to Winterhold. Hey, I haven't told you about those guys I murdered. She looked around and shook her shoulders. I guess later then. The DDC headquarters, Winterhold City. It's the boss. Welcome back, boss. Thanks, guys. Nicely done showing those Imperials, boss. Congratulations, boss. All right. Back to your places. I have something to say to you guys. John pacified the crowd of the employees as he stood tall between them. The employees of the headquarters are known as the management departments. They are the R&D, HR, marketing, legal, and financial departments. Each employee in this hellish environment can multitask better than any common mage and finish an astonishing amount of paperwork daily. They were often described as the cult of the boss or John's personal army because of how fanatic they are regarding John. They may seem like miserable office workers, but armed with various magic calculation tools and a very handsome salary. These employees are among the highest qualifications in the whole industry. Now, John is about to speak to them. Ladies and gentlemen, as you are all well aware of our newest phase, we are now expanding overseas and internationally, reaching deep into Morrowind. This is truly some great news, but the best part is the investment. For 5 years now, we have been fearful of the outside and relying on far-distance trading, which would sooner or later exhaust our capabilities and endanger us if we were to get besieged from multiple fronts at the same time. Now, the investment will ensure that those who are from the outside will need Winterhold to be safe and stay afloat because of their personal interests. This will gain us more friends and even more competitors, but the DDC will not be shaken, and with the launch of investment, we must offer 2 new primary services. We are creating 2 more departments during this month. John raised 2 fingers, and the anticipation reached its peak. He then took out a paper and started reading his plan. The first department will be the Dare Bank, an establishment that will be a very powerful extension to the financial department, and from now on, all salaries shall be cashed out at the bank. For most of you, this may seem unnecessary, but this will provide us access to the other important functions of banks. It will provide deposit boxes to safekeep important contracts and documents, as well as items and money. The bank will also regulate all the deposited money and provide investment opportunities by buying and selling shares in the newly established companies for those businessmen who lack assets. Other than that being a safe storage and a stock market, the bank will give business loans without benefits, but it will be owning shares in those businesses, which will also allow the investors and the businessmen to regulate more money. The important part is that we are going to expand to the other holds by providing business loans and management assistance to any struggling business, thus becoming their essential partners. As John finished explaining his basic banking and stock market idea, the room fell into a state of disbelief. This was it. This is the glorious day they all have been waiting for. The march to the other holds has begun. John will now invest outside Winterhold by giving small businessmen money and signing partnership contracts, even dispatching trained business advisors. This is massive and will not be 100% unheard of. It is way too professional and organized. All people thought that John would be a king or an emperor by conquering the world, which was something John refused. No one said anything about buying the whole world, though. The only ones aware of John's ambitions are those who work in this building. While it may have looked like an announcement of a new department, to them, this is the declaration of the fucking war they all have been waiting for. Banking and investment. If not the scariest professions in the world, then there is no job too scary. John knew that well, and his personal army, the management departments, were raging around like a mad war party. He waited until they calmed down and started revealing his other department. This one is more sinister. The second department will be the Dare Insurance. Of course, we won't let our lovely yet unfortunate investors and partners face problems without helping them, right? Insurance business is a risk management business, and the legal department will be very busy with this one. What we need is to create a policy for covering the risks that our partners may face and try to compensate them for their losses that happen due to accidents they are 100% not the cause of. This means we will pose as both the mercy of the divines and the trickery of the Daedra. For example, if a trader doesn't get his caravan sufficient security and comes for us for insurance money, we ain't covering him, See what we're doing here? It is giving our partners peace of mind as long as they do exactly what is required from them to do. With the dragons raging around, trading with us may not sound as dangerous anymore, right? Yeah, right. That's genius, boss. The management departments understood the importance of such a system and how strongly it will benefit the trade, even though they will always try to find leeways to not pay. It sounds dirty, but at the same time very appealing and attractive. John's suggestion included only trade insurance, as the trading world is dangerous and treacherous. It may sound evil to some, but it is exactly what the situation needed. Stock market, investing, banking, insurance, financial conquest. John looked at his real army, proud of the men and women who will devastate this world without even lifting one weapon. The real army of John Dare. Everyone quiet, John called, and they all looked at him. These two projects are ambitious and will take a lot of time. The probability for them to backfire on us is huge, and it is nothing like anything we have ever done before. It is the big money game. From now on, we'll be monitoring the movements of the other companies, how much money they have, and how much we can make them spend. Every septim will be monitored, and every trader will be listed. We can't leave anything to chance. Our current size may be small, so we will be hiring more management officers, and you, as senior employees, will have a lot of juniors to train. Some of you will be sent to the field to look for opportunities and strike deals with medium and small businesses. We will also submit the Bannerman clans and mercenaries so that we can increase the security of the hold. The past 5 years were something, and from now on, we are a whole new animal. Yesterday, they wanted to take our cornerstone, thinking that we will crumble without it, but let's teach them the right lesson. For the past 5 years, we were on the defense, and today, we go on the offense. John's declaration made the employees go mad one more time. R&D, John called. Yes, boss, the research and development head answered. You have a full study and plan for the 2 new departments. Contact the Dare Real Estate and start finding a location for the bank. By your wish, boss. HR, yes, boss. Are the non-human races still making a fuss about the human resources thingy? John asked. Yes, boss. We're calling it the People Resources unofficially. People Resources? Were you? Justin Trudeau? It is HR, like it or not. Yes, boss. Anyway, organize a list of elite Dare troopers and employees for the bank. We will do an exam. Keep tabs with the R&D. As you wish, boss. Financials. Boss, this is your moment. Most of your hard work will be dumped to the bank. Still, you'll be training a lot of employees to fill the voids. Thank you for the opportunity, boss. Legal. Boss. You know, I always think of you guys as my relatives. It's an honor, boss. Don't get too happy. You'll soon learn the dirtiest part of being a lawyer. Cooperate with the R&D to create the best trading insurance policies. I don't want it to leak even water. Absolutely, boss. Marketing. Yes, boss. Make us look as nice. Hee. No problem, boss. John gave out the major and minor tasks before observing the employees working as if they were bees in a hive. As he was done observing, he went up to his office and met the secretary department that covered his work with Alina for 2 whole years. Sev, the head secretary, opened the door to his office, and John walked in the throne room of his empire. It was as messy as he left it. A large library to the side, taking over the wall completely. Some display cases with some of his collections, the big sofa where he rests, and most importantly, his chair and his desk. Fulfillment. He sat back, relaxed, ordered a cup of Dunmary tea, spread his legs, and put his hands behind his head with a wide smile forming on his face. Just at that perfect moment, John had a strange feeling coming from the cube. He hurriedly retrieved the Dragonstone and checked it as he felt it was emitting a strange wave of energy. John put in the desk and imbued it with magicka right away. He closed his eyes, and in a minute, he opened them back again. As if this day can't get any better. John grinned widely. This is what he was waiting for. A dragon is being resurrected. The location? Rorikstead. The dragon? The burning fury of Wither Nahagliev. Chapter 531, Nahagliyev, ly/2dx3dx. Discord, gg/gkckva7. Instagram at don_dokmasi. Twitter at ldokmezi22. 24th of last seed, August, for E201. Rorikstead, one of the famous towns in Whiterunhold. A town which, despite not being near any body of water, has managed to maintain a large farming business by collecting the rainwater and exploiting the underground water resources. On a certain morning, this town was facing the day of its reckoning. A strange sensation struck the hearts of the people, and slowly dread crawled through their skin to their cores. All the negative emotions are something, and the true dread is something else. It is as if the world made less sense, and terror turned people into a state of drunkenness. A feeling that can't be stopped. All that happened when they saw it. The black dragon crossing the sky, casting its shadow on the restless town. The doom incarnate, the eater of the world and the harbinger of its end. The master of devouring destruction, Alduin. With the city losing its sense to the sight of the beast, it disappeared behind the nearby hills, yet a thundering shout that shook the Nirn was heard. 2 young guards selflessly volunteered to investigate, and only one returned. One was clearly dead, but the other who survived has faced a fate maybe worse than death itself. He went away a young man and returned with his hair all gray and his skin wrinkled. This olden young man said his last words, and the village fell into more desperation. There are 2 dragons, the one who passed over the town and another one which came from the ancient mound. It wasn't much until the 2 dragons were seen, the black one flying away and the other one. It was eyeing Rorikstead. Docile los moro. Vilas wa Alduin. Today is a day of glory. I feast in the name of Alduin. No one could understand the words of the dragon, whose wings were already pushing towards Rorikstead. No matter how it looks, this is imminent doom. Old Man Rorik was once a legion soldier who fought in the Great War. The man knew panic and fear as armies of men and elves slaughtered one another, but this terror was new to him. This is no man-elf situation, but it is the mortal-immortal game, something none of them were prepared for. Still, weren't there rumors? A dragonborn, right? Everyone heard it when the Greybeards called, and everyone was hopeful, but where is that so-called hero now? He is probably miles away, and would take him days to reach the burnt and devastated Rorikstead. Alas, the dragon whose scales were bright bronze flew above the town, with its maw opening and brightening up with flames. The bell tower rang. The villagers ran. All the hope left in the world was that a man and his 2 legs, and how fast they could take him away. Rorik knew it was the end. If the dragon takes him instead of the village, then it would be a good price compared to what he already has paid for Rorikstead to rise. Divine it is, or Deidre, Rorik wouldn't hesitate to sell his soul at the very moment for all his hard work not to burn away. And the flames came out aimed at everything. It was more than what a man can handle. He hoped the dragon would target him first as he stood his ground, but the dragon's breath seemed to be aimed at simply everything and everyone around it. Gods, demons, anything, Rorik prayed. Would a very handsome capitalist do the trick? And his prayers were answered. After knowing that the dragon next to Rorikstead was being resurrected, John was excited but concerned at the same time. Nahagliyev doesn't normally spawn at this early stage of the game's events unless things have changed regarding the resurrection pattern. Normally, Alduin would wake up the dragons from the closet to Skulldafn to the furthest. Still, something felt unnatural for him to bring out Nahagliyev first. Either way, John alerted the others. This meant Alina, Julliner, Wolfer, Miranda, Mirren, and Isha. The team of 7 was then joined by John Rad, Lydia, Jax, and 20 elite dare troopers. They all took the portal to Whiterun, saving themselves a few days' trip. Then John used a Grand Soul Gem to make a mass teleportation formation at a distance away from Rorikstead. Once the group of 30 arrived, John could spot Alduin already leaving and Nahagliyev targeting the defenseless Rorikstead. So much for a dragon's honor. John cussed. and looked at the others, spread out. Alina, Wolf, Joel, cover my back and protect the people. Isha, Mirren, Miranda, take the people to safety, then join the fight. Father, put down any fire. All right, moving. Are you serious? The group rushed towards Rorikstead from multiple directions, and with the help of the guardsmen, who were valiantly ready to fight, John stepped forward towards the old man, who was praying for any entity to save his town. John was wearing a horned helm that was a prototype Wolfer just gave him. It wasn't enchanted yet, but it looked exactly like the game's iron helmet, but was made from dragon bones and ebony. The one from Dragonbone, ebon steel armor mod with a veil. Why, well, Tor Shul. John faced Nahagliev alone. Unlike what he did with Mermolner, he is now facing this dragon with every item he has. He came in front of the terrible fire breath, not minding the heat, with 2 staves under his arms as he walked on his own pace. With the flames being a few inches away from him, John used the left staff. All of a damn sudden, the dragon breath disappeared. Senselessly, it was turned into a breath of white and pink petals. No homo, okay? John wasn't anticipating this change, but it was a welcome move either way. Nahagliev, the withering burning fury, was not just one of Alduin's lieutenants, but one of those who hated mortals the most ever since the wars with the Tsiesi in Akavir. Not just that, this particular dragon was especially proud of his flame, which won him the praise of Alduin, and for it to become petals. Behind those petals was the man who held a staff that was most certainly the culprit behind this strange phenomenon. Of course, John was carrying the Wabbajack and didn't really mean these shenanigans. Still, blocking a dragon breath head-on took a toll on the Wabbajack, almost depleting half of its charge. There was no time or need to recharge it, so John used the other staff right before Nahagliev would wake from his daze. With the imagination magic effect of pride, John manifested a large fist made of lightning magicka and launched it at Nahagliev, forcing the dragon off his place midair. Insolent Jor mortal! Nahagliev was infuriated as he didn't expect to be pushed in such a manner. Bad dragon! John sent another powerful spell that forced the dragon away once again, but this time, Nahagliev was not looking at John with fury, but rather as if he understood something. You are the one my lord spoke of. Dovakian? Nahagliev spoke. Prusa grind, Nahagliev. Zuzent? Nice to meet you, Nahagliev. Was I expected? The following conversation is in the Dovizol. I know you love Dovizol, but it is a pain to match the right words. All dragon language conversation will be between those marks. So, a mortal can speak the tongue of Dov. Too much for you to handle? I have been taking courses, you know. Fool! The tongue of our kind can't be tainted by the likes of you. Racism now? How lame. Fine, you're nothing but a lizard with wings. How is that for racism, bitch? Insolent. You think your ridiculous prattle will match the tongue of a true Dov? Haha, it is called dragon banter. Then I will shut you and your pitiful voice up. It only depends on your ability. Might makes right after all. And the showdown began. No one is to interfere, these were John's orders. It was right in the afternoon when the battle began, and it is midnight at the moment. The result, it was still ongoing, but not around Rorikstead anymore. When it all began, a few houses caught fire, and part of the farmland was scorched black, but John Rad and the Dare Troopers were helping the people and putting down the fire. Alina protected the village from the raging battle outside in the plains, and Jeliner kept tabs on the situation. The one-on-one battle between John and Nahagliev was chaotic. For the first time in a long while, John let go of all restrictions and fought like a maniac. Sometimes this battle would echo in the skies with a dragon and a man shouting each other down, and sometimes this battle would shake the ground. In truth, the terrain of the wild plains outside Rorikstead was completely altered. Mulnagar, strong fury, unleash. Nahagliev, who was facing the exhausted John on the ground, unleashed his berserking shout, and magicka around him exploded in a bloody rage, making his physical power almost seem as if it had been doubled twice. John couldn't afford to rest more than just this second, he took and revised his strategy once again in his head before jumping from his place, as Nahagliev personally came to bite his head off. It was almost impossible to harm John with magic when he uses the blessing of Azura, Dawn's beauty. John's jump bypassed Nahagliev from above, but a human can't maneuver midair as much as a dragon can, so Nahagliev cunningly took the chance to strike at John with his large tail. John intercepted the attack, and as he used Levitate, he added Bound Wings to it, reinforcing his flight speed even faster and completely going out of range. From the looks of it, John wasn't using Pride anymore, as Nahagliev has grown well aware of the threat the Elder Staff poses and would always retreat once he sees it. Why, well, Tur Shul. Nahagliev shouted the flame breath once again. Fusaroda. John would always reply with the shout he is most accustomed with, and he used the echo technique he learned from fighting Mermolner to try to copy the shout a few more times, but it proved to be very draining. Even though the result of this Thursday duel was the triumph of Nahagliev, whose flame broke through John's shout and almost reached John, who had to conjure a flying flame Atronak in order to use it as a meat shield. The Atronak wasn't even bothered with the dragon's flames. Mortal, your voice will always be inferior. Say that again, you dickless bastard. Die. What? Dragons don't do well with dick jokes? John evaded the next fire breath and used telekinesis on a nearby boulder, tossing it at Nahagliev. The dragon didn't even need to evade a physical object not imbued with magic, so Nahagliev casually rammed the boulder away with his head, but what he didn't expect is his wing getting cut vertically. It is that thing again. Nahagliev used the power of his legs to jump up and shouted, "Would na KSD," the whirlwind sprint shout, to get further away from that. In his place, there stood a bone samurai colossus with a terrifying bone katana covered in a dark cloak that perfectly hid his presence. Wrath has now developed his last power, which is called the Bone Lord. With it, Wrath can use bone magic to create anything from blades to arrows and even skeleton soldiers. As John's perfect warrior, John would combine his bone samurai colossus with greed that perfectly hides his presence and becomes a literal pain in Nahagliev's ass. John commanded Wrath multiple times to cut into Nahagliev's wings, causing unimaginable pain to the dragon. Nahagliev would always try to heal his wings if they are injured, which is an interesting weakness John noticed in the dragons. They need their wings to stay mobile in air, and with an opponent like John, short, fast movements are necessary. A weakness no one is daring enough to make use of unless they are an immortal undead with a badass katana and can never die as long as their owner is alive. Wrath is a wild card when it comes to long fights, as he can fit in any role for endless times and would cover for John when he needs to rest or heal. Either way, Nahagliev vowed to destroy Worth so many times during the past few hours, but this infuriating creature kept coming and going at his own pace. There was no even a way to detect him, even with Aura Whisper. Gron VUTH stat. Bind stop place. Nahagliev chose to hold John away by using the Bind Shout, which could have worked if not for John disappearing as well and appearing next to him. VIK Mathar. Defeat Fall Obey. John used one of the shouts he designed for himself, which required him to use his Tyrant Aura to its full power. The shout, which was called Overpower, would downgrade the enemy's power so that when the user strikes them, they feel the impact deep to their weakest points. QEHULD Haas. Armor Might Health. As soon as John's attack came, Nahagliev used the Battle State shout to form a magic armor around his body and get some time to heal. It has managed to negate the physical damage from John's attacks, but the emotional damage was severe. Nahagliev reached the point where he was being pushed around by John. No, he was being pushed around from the beginning of this battle. This mortal dragonborn proved to be more than just any other mortal worm in Nahagliev's opinion. Hours of fighting resulted in such a draw situation, with the two overwhelming one another. If this mortal doesn't get tired soon, this may be an endless fight. Nahagliev retreated once again, while this time he decided to use a trick dragons use for mid-air combat against each other. Su grah done. Wind battle grace. Usually, the elemental fury is a shout that reinforces weapons and makes them faster, but in a dragon's case, this shout was working on their wings. Nahagliyev flew back up, then twisted his huge body midair, escaping John's attacks, and as he reached a high enough altitude, he turned around and charged at John with his wings spread. John had a bad feeling about that, but all of a sudden he fully understood what Nahagliyev was doing. Without a second thought, he teleported away from Nahagliyev's reckless charge. Meanwhile, all the trees and boulders in the area Nahagliyev passed and were cleanly cut by his winds as if they were the sharpest swords on Nirn. Las Yanir, life seek hunt. John may have teleported, but Nahagliyev has already found him in a couple of seconds. He charged at John, and the situation shifted. John would teleport even behind Nahagliyev, and the latter would find a way to make a sharp turn and charge at John. For a minute, Nahagliyev was gaining a lot of confidence in defeating John, but also realizing that it was impossible to catch John like that. Mortal, if you keep escaping like that, it won't be fun anymore. How about I go pay those friends of yours in the town a visit? Nahagliyev was finally satisfied seeing he could have his way, but as soon as he turned to Rorikstead and spread his wings to rip through the town, his course was suddenly altered. Get over here. John launched the chains of Azadul's evil fist and caught Nahagliyev by the horns. It was impossible for John to stop the dragon from going forward, so he acted as an axis and led Nahagliyev to take a round turn for his face, crash into a nearby landrise. The loud crash shook the earth again for who knows how many times this evening. Nahagliyev moved fiercely after the crash and clumsily tried to return up in the air. His fury and hate towards John were reaching a new height after this crash. Mortal, you have truly done it this time. To dare provoke me for so long. I will. Nanny. John was somehow sitting on Nahagliyev's head. Silent eye contact. John had a hammer in his hand and some dark matter in the other. Sunder and greed. He fused them together, and it became Sunder's higher form, Big Sunder, a weapon of terrifying power. Big Sunder, Dwemer Warhammer. Elemental damage. Soul damage. Weight control. Hey, WIRM. Let's see how much weight you can carry. System. Input the desired weight. Tons. Yes. Historians recorded that on the first hour of Morndas, Monday, the 25th of last seed, August, of the year 201 of the Fourth Era, the Dragonborn killed his second dragon, Nahagliyev, not a week after the first, Murmulner. The site of the thundering battle left a large crater that could be seen from the road to Rorikstead. Chapter 532, Many Ideas of Adav. Big special thanks to the Honorable and Noble Mr. at Harry Smith, B. Rank, on Patter 0N. Patter 0N bit. ly/4dx5dx. YouTube bit. ly/2dx3dx. Discord GG/GKCKVA7. Instagram at @Don_Dokmacy. Twitter at ldokmeasy22. Somewhere around the Jarrell Mountains, a situation was unfolding away from the eyes of mortals. These are the highest peaks separating the Cyrodiil and Skyrim, and barely any man can reach such heights. For dragons, on the other hand, this is just a place as good as any to hold a meeting away from prying eyes and ears. It all started with two dragons silently keeping a safe distance from one another and waiting. Nothing happened much until a third dragon arrived, tearing through the clouds. Trodvik gave a roar announcing his arrival to the other two, Nakanax and Thurladial. As soon as he landed on a place nearby them, Nakanax roared aggressively and flew, slashing with his leg claws at Trodroniak. Know your place. Trodroniak retreated dejectedly and tried to say something in return, but Nakanax had a stronger voice. Being powerful is being right in the Dragon Society, Trodroniak, Grieve-bringer, had no choice but to retreat in front of Nakanax, ferocious cruelty, and Thurladial, tyrant of great fires. Nakanax, brother, let Trodroniak be. We still have to hear from him after so many years of slumber. Thurladial flew between the two and stopped the fight before it started. Nakanax always had a thing for bullying Trodronic, but the two dragons were never allowed to fight it out in the open. The reason for that was their leader. As the situation between the three dragons was about to go out of control and the verbal fight would turn intense, a great shadow covered the three dragons, causing them to hold from any folly. This great shadow was a dragon of a very large size, comparable only to Parthernax and second only to Alduin. This was the strategist of Alduin's horde, Onakindrog, wise warlord. This was one of Alduin's 4 lieutenants who controlled a branch in Alduin's horde each. The lieutenants are all very special and powerful. Once, one of the 4 betrayed Alduin, the great Parthernax, and Alduin's horde then crumbled at a very senseless pace. This one is glad to see the 3 of you as carefree as you were in the olden days. The dragon that landed on a higher ground than them was one of the ancient dragons that were there since the time of creation. This dragon in particular is not a one to be looked down upon. He lived through the wars of the Elenfey and battled the immortals and Akaviri heroes, who could even eat the dragons themselves. Onakindrog, our lord, we respect you. Thurladial spoke, fiercely shaming the other 2. Enough with the unnecessary words. Where's Nahagliev? Onakindrog asked vigorously. Thurladial and Nakanax looked towards Trodronic, who was at a loss for words on how to say this. He was killed by Dovahkiin. The reaction of the 4 dragons present in this place was just silence. Dovahkiin? The one we heard about? How is that possible? Why didn't you say so from the beginning? Thurladial was the first to show anger. Yes, you soft scales. Why didn't you say so? Nakanax shouted as well, putting pressure on Trodronic. Don't call me soft scales, you dull brute. Trodronic could no longer tolerate the bullying of Nakanax. Impud. DREM. Peace. As the argument was starting to shake the sky, Onakindrog had to stop it before it goes out of control. Trodronic, Alduin Thuri has informed us of the possibility of that. Dovahkiin, what happened? How come Dovahkiin happened to be so fast to reach Nahagliev? Onakindrog asked. Trodronic showed concern as the right question was finally asked. Dragi, my lord, it started before I received the order to come and guide Nahagliev after his revival. Alduin Thuri had departed long before I arrived, and I suspected to find Nahagliev feasting on the village nearby, but instead, I found the village protected by a number of mortals and Nahagliev fighting Dovahkiin 101. Nahagliev was bested by a mortal. Pathetic Tenderfangs. Nakanax snorted disdainfully. Nakanax, know your bounds. Onakindrog was not a fan of speaking more than acting thus. He became infuriated easily with the talkative Nakanax. He joined our Bormo. Father, Thurladial said, mourning Nahagliev. The dragons call Akatosh Borma. Yes, Thurladial. He was a part of the brethren. Onakindrog said, understanding the grim threat of a Dovahkiin. How did he die? Like a true Dov. But Dovahkiin was no true Dov. He tricked Nahagliev and attacked him from behind like a coward. He broke Nahagliev's neck. Breaking a dragon's neck? On any day of the week. That's the most impossible feat. Dragons' necks are not as fragile as anyone would think. Actually, they are covered with hard armor-like scales that no weapon can go through. It would give any dragon the shivers of the thought of their necks getting broken. Dovahkiin is that powerful? Onakindrog asked. I cannot tell for certain, but he could withstand Nahagliev with prowess and trickery combined. I kept my distance from him, but the human trickery is boundless. After Nahagliev fell, I tried to come down and take away his soul, but a few hours ago, Nahagliev fell in the most terrible way possible. With the incredible weight pushing him down, John wasn't merciful either, as he directed all the weight to completely break the dragon's balance. Once the fall began, it couldn't be halted. The dragons use a special magic to fly with their wings, but resisting all that much weight not only broke Nahagliev's neck, but his wings were torn, his spine dislocated, his head losing consciousness. If dragons weren't immortals, this would have ended his life midair way before the crash. But this situation is one of those where an immortal can't be envied for his immortality. John teleported away from the crash impact, then flew up and remained midair over the crash site. He could clearly feel that Nahagliev was done for by that last attack, yet some life force remained dwelling. As the dust cloud settled and a crater formed where the dragon is, John simply came down slowly and stood in front of Nahagliev. He ordered Greed to come back and bring over Sunder with it. Looking at the bloody state Nahagliev is in, John simply sighed with tired expressions and faced the eyes of the dragon. "What? Am I the bad guy here?" John asked, but even though Nahagliev's eyes were open and barely moving, he couldn't respond to John. John put his hand over the dragon's head and silently sympathized. It sucks to get revived after this long time to die not a few hours after. At least the battle should be fulfilling. But what is all this about? Why is there this feeling of remorse towards these brutish beasts? What is the worth of a dragon's life compared to human life? The dragon's soul is eternal while the human soul is mortal. But that is not how one should evaluate life, isn't it? Is it all right to save other people, but why is it so distasteful now? It surely didn't feel like this with Mermolner. It feels sad and empty. Part of him wished that the battle would go on forever. "You didn't have to dare me, have you?" John simply smiled wryly with his bitterness finding itself an excuse. Nahagliev closed his eyes, admitting defeat at last. But what of John? He was having a hard time bringing himself to end the dragon. At least putting him out of misery and humiliation is the best way to think of it. "You all right, hey?" John heard a voice behind him, and looking back, it was Wolfer. "You brought it down?" Jelliner asked. "Is it dead?" Alina followed. More people started to flood in as soon as they felt it was quiet. Seeing John simply standing in front of the dragon was a bit mysterious to them. They still kept their distance as John signaled them to stay back. But for them to refer to the dragon by it, John finally understood something about why he had a hard time right now. He never saw the dragon as it. It is a Dove, a sentient being that witnessed parts of history which history itself struggles to remember. It seemed that absorbing Mermolner's soul affected him more than he could ever think. It is time. John could no longer make Nahagliev wait as he drove his sword to the heart of the dragon, ending it all. As the dragon's flesh and blood disintegrated to join John's soul in a mystical fashion, a terrible situation happened. John simply turned to the sky and shouted. This shout frightened all those who were around him as they finally felt the presence in the sky which came down before them. However, this presence completely altered its course with John saying this word. Everyone aside from John went pale, knowing that this would have turned ugly if this dragon decided to catch them off guard, but the reason it went away remained a mystery to most of them. No one figured out it was civility among Dov. Back to the present. Respect? The mortal told you to show respect? Nakanak shouted. You could have avenged Nahagliev. Even the collected Thurlidial showed disapproval. Silence. Onakindrog didn't seem to be minding their opinions and asked Trodroniak, "What do you think?" As expected from the wise warlord, his insight was unfathomable to see through the thoughts of Trodroniak. He is Dovakian, immortal, but still a Dova. He understands things and has many new ideas in his Thursdayam. Dragons have their own method of evaluating others. Mortal and dragon were of course on top of the chart, but they don't really mind what others think unless they acknowledge them. To say that a man has many new ideas means that he has more impact, power, and personality that would rise to the level of the dragons and go higher than the one who made the evaluation. In other words, it was a concerning matter for a dragon to admit. Even the arrogant Nakanax wasn't acting as wild as he usually does after that comment. Dragons possess deep wisdom despite the emotions of hate, fear, jealousy, and rivalry they have for one another. No dragons would trust another easily. There were limits and standards. Onakindrog contemplated silently until he formed his own ideas. Dovakian is dangerous. That we understand. We searched for his whereabouts before, but he seems to be moving through magic, and tracking him would be tricky. What else do we know? He asked. Dovahkiin has the support of a warlord in the north. I have sent my slaves to deal with him, but they never returned. Nakanax said, Nakanax, it is unwise to act without knowing. Know the enemy before you act, and you shan't fear the result of your battles. Onakindrog spoke. These are just mortals, Dragi. We can get rid of them with just more slaves. Thurladial seemed to agree with Nakanax. Know thy enemy. This is the most important rule in our sect. Alduin Thuri expects us to know everything, and we must deliver. Go find more about this warlord in the north. If you find Dovahkiin there, we can ask Kungasvard himself to intervene. No human can match Kungasvard. By your orders, Onakindrog, Trodroniak shouted as he spread his wings and flew away. Nakanax, you have proved able to train our mortal followers. I assign you to guide the cult and its new priest. Onakindrog said, I will see to it, Onakindrog. Thurladial, I command you to find ways to stir up this war. Go to the west, but do not get engaged in combat. Use your wits to make the mortals fight each other. As you command. The four dragons separated as systematically as they gathered. It was all part of the chain of command in the dragon horde of Alduin. Alduin sat on top as the firstborn of Akatosh. Onakindrog and another two lords ruled the four branches of the horde, each to their own expertise, and an army of dragons following them. Currently, a few dragons returned back to life, and most of the survivors were no longer loyal to Alduin after 4,000 years. Time changed, and the mortals as well became much different, but as long as there is room for infighting, the dragons shall thrive on the demise of mortals and raise themselves a new cult. The world of the Fourth Era was bound to see events that would stagger the whole history for years to come as the Second Dragon War has officially started. Winterhold. After hunting down Nahagliyev, John was feeling very restless. Something is not right. He could just feel it. Alduin's abilities proved to be more terrifying after examining and investigating what happened around Rorikstead. John went to the Dragon Mound and found the corpse of a guard almost dry, even though he was killed less than 24 hours ago. With further understanding, John understood that Alduin has the ability to make things age. Alduin is called the World Eater because he can bring about the end of times by actually absorbing the time itself. This was a very disturbing fact that John couldn't ignore. Soul, time, shadows, music, all these things needed one another to exist, and Alduin can simply devour them like nothing. It is a terrifying concept indeed. John walked out of his bed, sneaking away from his wife's embrace, and went down to the basement where he could sit and study. He had a little to no materials that he can use to know more than what he already knows about dragons. The frustration was killing him, but he silently endured and took out two artifacts that may help him. The Dragonstone of Bleak Falls Barrow and the Golden Claw. These two items were made by the secret techniques of the dragon cult, which perished a long time ago, and they are complicated to understand even for him. The Dragonstone can receive feedback once one of the 22 berry dragons gets resurrected, and the Golden Claw has a strange mystical effect to it. John needed to study them both for some time to further know their true abilities, but he felt like his understanding was hitting a wall due to a barrier he can't process. It seemed that even the mighty John Dare is experiencing the limits of his potential. Maybe there are ways to boost that potential. Maybe he can finally start using those 3 black books he kept gathering dust in a corner. Or maybe he can go and look for that Ogma Infinium book. Actually, it is about time he goes on a trip to Oblivion once again, or maybe High Hrothgar. The opportunities for learning more are still bountiful. Chapter 533, Side Questing. What's up, dudes and dudettes? It's Don speaking. Sorry for the unannounced delay. Many things happened lately, and I was to stay isolated for a few days due to getting close to a coronavirus case. I am fine, thankfully, but I've come to hate the basement so damn much. Anyway, I unlocked chapters 534, 535, and 536 on Patter Zero In, so you can go and read them for free before they are published here. Here is the link. http://bit.ly/4dx5dx. Stay safe indoors. In his office, John was writing all the details about his last night's research. The Golden Claw is more than just a key to open a sealed chamber. It actually possesses a number of magical qualities on its own, making it one of the weirdest artifacts John has ever seen. The ancient enchanting technique resembled that of Ozidal's, but wasn't it? As the successor of Ozidal, John was very aware of how these enchantments worked. What he discovered was that the enchantment on the Golden Claw is not a regular user-beneficial enchantment, but rather an area-beneficial enchantment. It means that the claw is useful to the area around rather than being used personally. To make it simpler, John understood why Lucan, Riverwood trader, was so attached to the Golden Claw. The reason is simple, and that is the fact that the claw brought his trade good luck. It is simply a very effective good luck charm, or, as John would put in an educated term, a blessed item of fortune. The Golden Claw, blessing of fortune. If the claw was effective enough to make a simple, uneducated trader feel its effect, how will such a thing affect a large-scale financial establishment? Say the casino or the investment and trade bank. John couldn't ignore the fact that combining this artifact with a new investment banking system would be like adding wings to a tiger or extra fluff to a cat. It is basically cheating, but there is one thing John knows about using luck-related magic. It always has a drawback, and must be used very carefully, as it is so powerful to the point where it may manipulate fate at some points. This hedge magic was something which always intrigued John, as he knew of many methods to manipulate it. The old man's coin, which he always carries, the crown of Berenzia, which was lost somewhere in Skyrim, as well as praying to a deity known by the name Sai. It is to him that the disease Sai's affliction is attributed, which is a strange disease that causes those who pray to Sai too often to experience bad luck instead of good. John explains that phenomenon as a fateful drawback. Still, as an expert in the fate subjects and the hedge magic, John would use the Golden Claw to manipulate any economic depression situations in the Dare Bank. There is nothing like using exploits now that he finally has access to one. Still, all of this raises a very important question. What can the other Dragon Claw keys do? John is aware that there are 10 claws in the game, each made of a certain material that goes from iron all the way up to actually diamond. If these insanely powerful claws were used as keys to unlock the most important vaults to the dragon cult, then the dragons must be the ones that made them. If his guess is correct, they may have been items of great value to the worshippers of the dragons. More to that, the dragons must know about these important artifacts at the very least. But wait, what about the dragon priest masks? Aren't they just the same? Actually, they're more like badges of office now that John thinks seriously about it, but there must be more. The dragon cult. John began deeply thinking, but he was feeling that something is amiss, and he needed to investigate more. In the meantime, he must gather all the dragon claws and the dragon priest masks. They exist in the old strongholds of the dragon cult. Most of these strongholds are still sealed shut, but others were used by Nords in later ages to bury the kings, like Corvinjund, or to seal dangerous cursed criminals like Falgunther. Aside from the dragon claws and the dragon priest masks, there was the stone tablet, known as the Dragonstone. It would seem that this stone can be used to track down the dragons all around Skyrim, but it is not working, perhaps due to how ancient it is. Now, it is time to send the excavation teams. John won't possibly go after these things himself, as most of his movements from now on will be as the Dragonborn. After a long day of work, John met with the manager of Sarthel's museum, Silas Vesuvius, and the leader of the excavation team, Mjal the Lioness. John saved Silas from being damned to oblivion by Maroon's Dagon and offered Mjal a sponsorship for all of her adventures as long as she agreed to be hired as an excavator for the DDC. While Mjal is more righteous than anyone else around John, he knew exactly what she can't refuse and offered it to her. Now she has funds and manpower to follow her around as she pursues her passion. John gave both Silas and Jal a number of tasks. Most of them are about keeping an eye on those historical sites and obtaining the dragon claws and anything else worth having. After getting all that ready and done, John spent the following few days administering the company, Winterhold, and the bank's construction. It was all happening at a rapid pace, and the results were satisfactory until now. Aside from that, John was focusing on the news coming from the other holds. First, the rumor about him killing the first dragon was hard to believe for some, but when the news about the second dragon were spread wide and the site of the battle near Rorikstead was confirmed, everything started to change. The songs of the Dragonborn were heard for the first time in Whiterun taverns, then traveled nationwide to Solitude and the other holds. In such desperate times, the people clung to the hope that is a Dragonborn rather than Jarls and leaders. Second, Riften and Dawnstar sent their envoys to Winterhold reporting multiple sightings of dragons and requesting to establish a method of fast contact with the Dragonborn, which John complied to without a question. He put on the helm of the Dragonborn, which was iconic to him, and conversed with those envoys with the presence of Jonrad, who dejectedly acted as his son Jonhild by standing at a visible distance. The act was a success, seeing how the father and son pair were close in appearance, which resulted in another fight between the two later that day. Third, and most important piece of news, was the Imperial Legion. It seemed that General Tullius didn't receive the news well and mobilized a few ships towards Jalmarch. Jarlskald, the elder of Dawnstar, acted rashly and sent a few longboats in a night raid, which intercepted the Imperial ships and lit them on fire. The losses were minimal, and thanks to Jarl Idgrod, Ravencrone, mobilizing a relief party and stopping Jarlskald from doing anything too foolish, the Imperials retreated on land after getting their ships completely useless. That naval skirmish was completely orchestrated by John. While it doesn't seem like anything related to him, John had a few agents inside, Dawnstar, who tipped off Jarlskald about the Imperial ships. John also tipped off Jarl Idgrod about the skirmish, giving her the opportunity to take timely action and stop an open conflict. Analyzing the situation was done by Alina, who completely understood that General Tullius was trying to show off some muscles after the latest accident in Winterhold. The Penitus Oculatus agents were surely active, trying to minimize the impact of the blunder, but if there is anything John is good at, then it is his big mouth and loud voice. He bragged for 3 days straight about what happened that day, in front of every envoy that visited him. Soon afterward, the Imperial Embassy sent a very seasoned diplomat to Winterhold in order to see John's complaints about the situation and minimize the damage. They also requested an audience with the Dragonborn, but John said he doesn't know where his friend is at the moment, as he seemed to have gone somewhere to train. John just didn't want to act rash without assessing his political opponents this time first. His decision proved to be wise when he received the background check of the diplomats. Nefertiti said that you passed as a cat person. Thank you, Miss Nefertiti, I guess. John clapped his hands as he stood off his desk. Alrighty, pack your stuff and meet me at the secret portal, Lydia. Let's do some side quests. Alright, and on some day, the bored Dragonborn decided to do some side quests. Whiterun, the hub of Skyrim's trade and its vastest hold, a place that was torn apart by the war, yet kept its core, the city of Whiterun, away from conflict and the sieges. John, Lydia, and Nefertiti were today's team. John was covering himself with a big cloak and a hood to not stand out despite his noticeable height. The first thing that met them upon going out of Breezeholm was the sight of an argument between the guards and 2 Alakar warriors, as Breezeholm is actually close to the city gate. Look, you've already been told you're not allowed here. Turn around and go back the way you came. A guard said, We're causing no trouble. All we ask is to look for her. Alakar warrior number 1 said, I don't care what you're doing. After what happened, you're lucky I don't toss you in jail. Now get lost. The guard replied, We'll be back. This is not over. Alakar warrior number 2 said. As the 2 Alakar warriors were about to leave, they saw John and assessed him to be a mercenary. In actuality, John was trying to give off that impression. You there. We are looking for someone in Whitron, and will pay good money for information. The warrior spoke to John. Is that so, friend? John put on the airs of a Nord and nodded. Let's see if I can help. Long story short, these warriors are looking for a Red Guard woman who escaped Hammerfell some time ago, and probably not using her true name. John knew this boring quest very well, and wanted to play it in a different way. In the game, this quest is all about finding the Red Guard woman and handing her over to the warriors or assisting the woman to kill the warriors. Sounds simple enough? Nope. In the history of video gaming, this quest in particular was like an unscratchable itch to many, as no one knew who is right and who is wrong. Is the woman truly a hunted criminal, or are the warriors actually assassins sent after her? Whoever the bad guy in this story happens to be an agent to the Almarai Dominion, which is something John doesn't tolerate. Sadly, the game doesn't spare a single goddamn hint other than mild behaviors and baseless speculations of both the hunted woman and the leader of the warriors. After accepting to help the warriors, John directly headed towards the Bannered Mare Tavern in Whiterun's Market. Along the way, he met with a beautiful single mother called Carlotta Valencia, who was as charming as the game described her be. John had to beat up the bard harassing her and gained a sack of potatoes as thanks. Back to the Red Guard woman quest, John knew the woman's identity to be Sadia, the inn maid in Bannered Mare. He approached her silently and did the same script from the game, but when he tried to ask her more than what she said, she claimed that she was tortured by the Almarai Dominion after the fall of the city of Tanith, and pointed to the large scar on her face. John said he would help her, and indeed, he went out searching for the Red Guard warriors until he tracked down their den and confronted their leader, Kamatu. John didn't kill Kamatu as Sadia requested, and agreed to lure her outside the city for Kamatu and his warriors to capture her. Once that was done, John started altering the game events from this point. He suddenly attacked both Kamatu and Sadia, knocking them out and throwing them in a room inside the Haven Cube. From that point, John started interrogating the two using lust. He played them well until they broke to the effect of the desire to tell the truth, and it was surprisingly a better plot than what the game offered. Was it Sadia who betrayed Hammerfell and sold the city of Tanith to the Dominion? Was it Kamatu who was hired by the Dominion to hunt down Sadia for speaking against them? The answer was both. Both of them are agents for the Almarai Dominion. Well, in Sadia's case, she was, John said. Lydia looked at him as expressionless as she was the other day. John decided to continue the conversation with himself. Well, you should say, but my Thane, as much as you are handsome, you must be mistaken. Why would those abominable spies hunt down each other? Or something along those lines. Oh, but here you're not seeing the bigger picture, Lydia. During the Great War, Sadia indeed betrayed the city for the Dominion in order to rule it under them. No one found out about her deal until the Dominion left Hammerfell, and gradually, those who didn't resist the Dominion were weakened politically. She tried to get support from the Dominion once again, but when they refused, she threatened them to expose their political secrets, so they sent Kamado after her. In the end, they're all just some traitor scum. John finally declared the situation and clapped his hands together. Neither Sadia or Kamado were to survive what comes next, as John incinerated them without leaving a trace. Case closed. Let's get some cold honey mead for tonight. A slow start for John's side questing, but who knew the next quest would turn into a freaking war? Lydia was feeling it for some reason. Chapter 534, Attack on Thalmor. Hi guys. So Patter 0N has started following a new sales taxation protocol on pledges, which got me concerned, and I went through that long page of terms and policies. Too damn long, and thankfully, we are mostly safe from the situation. For those of you who live outside Europe and the United States, this doesn't concern you at all, mostly. As for those who live in Europe and the US, the taxation is only limited to streaming content, downloadable and physical goods. In our case, we only work with support, recognition, and exclusive community access, so all of you guys are exempted for taxation. To be safe, Check out your national or state law to avoid misunderstanding. Also, we give thanks and recognitions to our new, fabulous, absolutely wonderful new patrons. At Nukadova, C rank. At Joshua Hammonds, C rank. At Smashing Flyer, D rank. At Max, C rank. Side quests were fun. Slowly but carefully, and on the span of 2 days, John started finishing most of these side quests that he could remember. It gave him a great nostalgia and an incredible insight on how his actions and decisions can affect everything around him. He even got himself involved in the feud between the Greymane clan and the Battleborn clan. Even though John Battleborn and Alfina Greymane were already married, the political feud from the game happened nonetheless, but it was way less intense. Unlike the game, when the Battleborns were taking an indifferent attitude towards the situation of Thorold Greymane, who was captured by the Thalmor. This time, they were actually a bit open with the Greymanes and told them some details that their son was captured somewhere in Solitude to force the Greymanes to switch sides, as it seemed that they have contacted General Tullius for the release of Thorold, but they didn't say anything regarding the Thalmor. Even though the feud was much lighter than what happened in the game, a feud is still a feud, and the ones who were harmed the most by it in the game were also the same ones who were harmed by it now, John Battleborn and Alfina Greymane. After John's return to Skyrim, John Dare and John Battleborn met after the subjugation of the first dragon, Mermulner. John Battleborn is one of the few people who knew the true identity of the Dragonborn as a personal friend to John Dare and a company executive. When he heard that the Dragonborn offered help with Thorold's situation, he was the first to don his armor and carry his sword for the cause. Just as that happened, a Volstein Greymane was also carrying his Dane axe and wearing his armor to free his brother from captivity. Of course, John revealed that Thorold was captured by the Thalmor, and the only way to get him out is through. Knowing the Thalmor, some powerful mages must be present in a Thalmor stronghold, and the fight won't be easy, thus John insisted on hurting some Talos cultists as mercenaries, and a small war band was formed in a cave north to Whitron after clearing it for bandits. The number reached 50 combatants of the strongest fighters from various backgrounds. All of them were aura masters from different age groups who came together to save the people that were imprisoned by the Thalmor in Northwatch Keep. As the men were put together and recognized the Dragonborn as the youth who wears the horned helm, John instructed them to go north on horseback towards the Pale and raid the pirate camps hidden in that area to take their longboats. In the span of 1 week, the group managed to reach their designated location and created a big scene by eliminating 3 pirate camps in 2 nights. With 50 hardy Nords and 3 longboats in good conditions, John led them into the sea, traveling west-north to Jalmarch and Solitude. Along the way, the warband of the Dragonborn made a name for itself by destroying every pirate ship in its way all the way to the shores of Solitude. There, the Imperial fleet met them and tried to force them back, but with the identity of the Dragonborn and the fame of the warband, the Nord officers of the Imperial fleet showed reluctance towards their commands, which by its part led to the fleet commander appeasing the tension by letting the 50 Northmen pass. What can go wrong with letting 50 warriors led by a Dragonborn pass anyway? Either way, the warband made another accomplishment by successfully getting rid of the dangerous pirates that were lurking around the mouth of the Karth River under Solitude, who were led by the Argonian siblings Driare and Dija. Following such an achievement, the 50 men landed in Solitude's docks and loaded up for more raids against the pirates. The clans of Solitude tried to invite in the Dragonborn, but the ships left as soon as they landed. Until now, 1 week has passed since they moved from the Pale. John was sure of how those 50 men can fight and how he should employ them in the next battle. During the next 2 days, the band landed not too far from Northwatch Keep, which was used by the Thalmor as a prison, and made contact with a nearby fishing village to announce their presence. Meanwhile, John and Nefertiti went towards the keep to scout it from the shadows and figure out a plan. It all went well, and John found a total of 7 Thalmorheim mages. These were the ones in charge of the whole scene. With this information, John returned to the village to openly make a ritual dedicated to Talos and ordered a man from the war band to disguise himself as a villager and tip off the Thalmor in the fort about them. Without a single suspicion, these Thalmor sent a justiciar along with 10 Dominion soldiers to arrest the man who openly conducted a ritual and led him back into the fort. This whole thing was staged from the beginning, and as soon as the arrest happened and the man was taken, John and the rest of the warband showed up in the village and asked for their friend just to make a proper excuse for what follows. And what followed was carnage. The Dragonborn and the warband of 49 warriors raided Northwatch Keep at night. As soon as the Thalmor were alarmed of the raid, John had already infiltrated the fort and hid in the darkness. Human, 160 feet north on the wall. I see him. With the torches of the warband being thrown around the fort to start a fire at anything burnable, John was inside, assassinating the high mages with Maroon's razor. He marked the dagger, flipped the old man's coin, then threw the dagger with all his might at the mage 50 meters away. Instant kill. John teleported near the dagger using his mark, took it out and attacked anyone nearby before jumping off the fort's wall and running away. Assassin. Catch him. There was no way he would be caught in his current momentum. He had a warband distracting the Thalmor outside and killed everyone in his way. The reason why he had to do such a thing instead of venturing alone into the fort and killing everyone was to make fame for himself aside from being just a Dragonborn. His abilities are clearly that of a warrior rather than a mage, which is something to the liking of all Nords, and his talent in leading raids is as legendary as Ysgramor himself. He wanted the Nords to associate the number 50 with the 500 companions of Ysgramor, so that his popularity increased further. The other reason he did such a move was to prevent the Thalmor from using hostages against him. It would be very troublesome if he found a blade pointed at the neck of a helpless prisoner and he can't do anything about it. With the mages dispatched and the prisoners located, John went inside the fort's dungeon and broke the man who was imprisoned free. "You all right, John?" "I am, John." "Then take your sword and shield, and don't let any Thalmor near those prisoners, John." "Thanks, John. Leave some weapons for those men locked over there. We will defend this place together." "Good, John. Here you go. We will break the gates now." "Good luck, John." "To you too, John." John and John parted ways in the dungeon as Battleborn remained to secure the prisoners and Dare went to join the attacks. Outside the keep, the situation was extremely chaotic as the Dominion soldiers were mobilizing the defense equipment from the front of the keep to its back, where enemies are not supposed to attack. The warband chose to attack from the back despite the walls being higher and thicker to force the Dominion soldiers to move the arrows and shields all the way to the back, but when they finally got the signal from John, the warband retreated and circled around the fort to attack from the front. This caused the Dominion soldiers to move all their equipment once again. This time, however, the warband was not just shooting arrows and hiding behind trees and shields. They were forming a particular shield formation that resembled a battering ram as they marched towards the gate. There was no way this formation would work. What they were trying to accomplish is by no means possible unless they have a high mage themselves or the assassin inside the fort shows himself and breaks the gate open. The truth which faced the Thalmor was different. Once the shield formation reached the gate under the constant arrow and spell attacks, a dangerous presence was felt at the gate, and those who were above the gatehouse lost their consciousness. Fusaroda. The gates were blown away, and the Dominion soldiers' defense formation behind them crumbled with the two massive blanks of wood flying at them, turning anyone in their way into meat paste. It was then when the raid truly began. "Charge!" John shouted a battle cry, and the axemen flowed in like water. The fort's yard was overtaken, and the walls were being cleaned from any elves almost instantly. The rear of the fort showed some resistance, as the Dominion soldiers managed to cause some damage to the Nords, but a Volstein Greymane served as Dane axed the necks of those elves. John even sent out Nefertiti to kill any elf that seemed like a threat. Inside the keep, the fight started as John Battleborn secured the dungeon against the elves who tried to use the prisoners as hostages. He had a band of prisoners with him that assisted him in the ambush. As the fight outside was nearly done, the back door of the dungeon was opened and the war band flowed through. From the main gate, John shouted once again, and broken all by himself, cutting the elves to shreds with a greatsword. As he walked the hallway of the keep, the doors opened from left and right as the Nords were killing and pillaging. They even had some Dominion soldiers tied up and dragged out of the fort as prisoners. John finally reached the torture room where he expected to find Thorold Greymane. Kicking it open, he easily expected an ambush that he withstood by a shield as he pushed against the 10 or so elves before he swung the greatsword with one hand to kill them all. John Battleborn and a Volstein Greymane followed him in as they stormed the last room where Thorold Greymane was chained to a wall. Thorold, a Volstein, what an oblivion. How are you here? I thought there was a war outside. There's a war outside. Wah, come, let's get you out. John Battleborn and a Volstein unchained Thorold and helped him walk out as the war band was finishing up things. Elf prisoners were taken and important documents were secured. As the prisoners were made to kneel in the keep's hall, a round of beating and kicking started, especially from the ones who were imprisoned in the fort. John simply distanced himself from the noise and skimmed through the documents while mumbling. Slave trading, human experiments, sexual assaults, mass murder, assassination orders, espionage. If these documents land in the hands of Ulfric, the Empire is totally fucked if they covered for this knowingly. John said as he kept those papers in the cube. Rumors can travel all they want, but hard evidence would make a very disturbing stance if the Nord nobles were to react to this. Of course, the Empire is mostly unaware of what happens in Thalmor prisons, and those who are aware would be traitors. The White Gold Concordat gives the right to hunt down the cults of Talos, not to commit racial crimes, but simply speaking, the Empire wouldn't be able to deny its knowledge, and even its citizens would lose faith in its credibility. By tracking down those leads and legitimizing them, John would have the Empire itself by the balls. Nefertiti, on the way back, would you please drop by our Imperial friends and leave them this gift? John ripped off a page from a document and gave it to Nefertiti. She appeared from a shadow and turned into her human form, then took the paper and tried to read it, but to no avail. Human scratchings make me dizzy. Good luck, O. And stick around the Imperials for a while. Tell me what face General Tullius makes when he sees it. John said as he returned back to the warband. It was a dark face, very dark even by Redguard standards. General Tullius was having the worst month of his life. People have a midlife crisis, and he was having midlife disaster. Not only did he lose Ulfric's Stormcloak in Helgen, but he ended up causing Winterhold to switch from the neutral stance to the Stormcloak faction. Yet now, as the month was finally going to pass, he received news of a Nordic warband led by the rumored Dragonborn acting heroically and clearing up pirates, which is a good thing, until the damn Thalmor decided to arrest a member of the warband. All hell broke loose a few nights ago, when the warband led by the Dragonborn raided Northwatch Keep and pillaged every last scrap in the place, freeing all Nord prisoners and taking elf prisoners for themselves. The warband then hurried back to Dawnstar and handed the elves over to Jarl, Skald the Elder, who rewarded them with gold. On the other hand, military legate Rika informed him of a note delivered to her by a little girl. This note was a ripped page from a Dominion report that contained details about some Imperial officers receiving bribes from the Dominion to overlook their ruthless activities. This was a scandal from a whole new level, and it would harm the Empire in one go if left unchecked. The general ordered to bring out those officers and put them on secret trial, then execute them swiftly and report them as missing in action. So, this Dragonborn, he is going to be another pain in the ass, isn't he? The general asked. Legate Rika refrained from answering and focused on the report. Here is what we know from Legate Julia's visit to Winterhold. The Dragonborn was there during Helgen. He is the man who was about to get executed when the dragon attacked. He used to work for John Dare during his stay in Cyrodiil. The cult of Ancestor Moth dictates that if this man is truly a Dragonborn, then there are incredible changes that will happen to the world. Seeing the dragons and the situation with the Thalmor, we are in those times, General. Legate Rika said. General Tullius felt his skin crawling with the mention of dragons, but he kept his act together. I don't need cults and prophecies to win me the war, Legate. I need reliable information, he said as he slammed the table in frustration. The Elder Council has kept the identity of John Dare's Krylin from us until that disaster happened. Had I known he is of importance to the Emperor, things would have gone differently. Now I have to worry about John Dare and his Dragonborn running wild to solidify their stance. Seeing his frustrated face, Legate Rika kept her cool. Well, the East Empire Company advised us not to cause a situation with him. Are you suggesting that I should have listened to those gold diggers merchants? Jarl Elizaf also advised us to keep a friendly relationship with Winterhold, and I had the same opinion. Well, congratulations. All of you are right, and I am the fool in this party. General Tullius tossed a mead bottle across the room in a fit of anger. After a minute of taking some breath to let the negative thoughts out, General Tullius turned back once again and took a seat reviewing the reports in front of him. They were all accurate and well-detailed reports. Even the corruption investigation proved to be thoroughly accurate, the thing that almost frustrated him all over again. Still, in these reports he could read a certain name that wasn't actually written. In the past month, General Tullius developed the sense of sniffing out John Dare's presence in those reports. The changes of Winterhold, the relationship between John Dare and Vittoria Vici, the Bard's College espionage activities, the war band of the Dragonborn, the dragon attacks. John Dare had either a direct or indirect fingerprint on each and every report here. It is as his name was written between every word in those damn papers. Oblivion. If we were living in a novel about this John Dare, he wouldn't be this much, right? He said and looked at Legate Rika. She followed the report with her eyes and made a helpless face. What'll we do in this case? He knows too much. Legate Rika said. General Tullius looked at her, trying to find an answer at her face, but she was as helpless as he is. He then simply raised his shoulders and replied, "Let's not bother with him. We'll have to cross his path in the future, so let's keep things quiet for now. Maybe we can win something next time." The general calmly decided to leave the matters with Winterhold alone. He may not like to admit it, but he was rash when dealing with John Dare. John's return was very timely with the late chaos, which put a lot of strain on the mind of General Tullius, especially with the late sightings of the dragons. Dragons, those creatures left a terrifying mark on the general who always thought he had seen it all. If a Dragonborn is what it takes to kill a Dragonborn, then the Dragonborn it is. He won't stand in his way. But he can't lose ground like that. The general finally felt some inspiration after 1 month of constant failure. If he can make an alliance with the Dragonborn, he can slip through the brash Nordic politics without and solidify the stance of the Empire. Still, the Thalmor are a hateful bunch who will stand in his way. If that's the case, then there's a certain John Dare who has a kink of murdering Thalmor. He can always hit the Thalmor with that rock. They have truly offended the general and the Nords this time. It will also be a good opportunity to clear the Empire's responsibility from the scandal. Still, the Dragonborn comes first. What would a Dragonborn need? Legate asked the Penitus Oculatus to compile a file on the Dragonborn and check out any treasure we can get the Empire to send us. General Tullius had a devious idea to get close to the Dragonborn. He may be a military man, but he is still a sly Imperial like the rest of his kind. He smiled faintly as he felt his appetite finally better than the past few days. There was that thing with dried fish and wine somewhere around that table next to the wall. He could find the wine, but no trace of the fish. Strange. Did Rika eat the fish? Chapter 535, A New Hand, TOUC. Mute. Hello, guys. I have a small announcement. Some time ago, I joined a Skyrim mod project called Mysterious Akavir, and from its name, you'd know where it is going, aka fucking Veer. We are creating a small-scale island first called Aneslia as a part of the 3 Dragon Isles between Tamriel and Akavir to assess ourselves and how much we can achieve, but we lack willing manpower. If any of you has time and skill, we'd require you to submit a proof of your skill on Discord server, so don't feel shy and DM me directly, so I'll link you with the project lead. We need mostly everything from 2D, 3D, level designers, composers, etc. Our unique ideas include martial arts spells, wuxia-inspired, lore makeover, Eastern fantasy inspiration, and more edgy stuff. Stay tuned, or help out if you can. Discord, GG/GKCKVA7. The actions of the Dragonborn leading a war band against the Thalmor had a far-reaching effect than what any can imagine. It was a sign to the warring humans that the true enemy they should be pointing their blades at is the Viper lurking in the shadows, sowing discord among brothers and friends. As the prisoners from Northwatch Keep returned to their families, the Dragonborn was celebrated with many songs and poems describing his voice-wielding power or the ancient Nordhard. Such a tale took 3 days to spread around Skyrim like wildfire, making the reputation of the Dragonborn something to behold. John didn't feel wiser than the moment when he decided to hide his identity that day. Either way, the political reaction to the raid on Northwatch Keep varied from the Jarls to the Empire to the Thalmor to everyone else. The Jarls mostly supported the Dragonborn openly in the east and moderately in the west. Those who returned to their families were advised to keep their heads down and escape to a Stormcloak territory before anything unpleasant happened, and so a scene of cooperation between the warring sides happened amidst this darkness. The Empire took its usual passive stance to avoid the drama that follows, but it was rumored that General Tullius has kicked out the Thalmor messenger after acting out of manners. The official stance regarding the raid was simply mere words saying that the Dragonborn should have known better than starting a conflict, and the Empire advises him to seek legal means rather than taking the law into his own hands. On the other hand, the Thalmor were rather on edge. The Dragonborn is surely closely associated with John Dare, who is their #1 public enemy. It is without a doubt that John Dare acted behind the scenes in this raid, if not funded or participated in it himself. The trap was surely obvious, since no Nord would openly worship Talos near Thalmor prison, but the nerve of those Nords was really something to not only kill the Thalmor agents and guards, but also take prisoners and hand them over to the Stormcloaks. That's right, the Thalmor agents who survived the raid were taken as prisoners and sold to Ulfric's Stormcloak at the docks of Windhelm openly like slaves. This particular scene reminded many of the stories of the construction of Windhelm, when Isgrimor and the 500 companions raided the elves and took them as slaves to build the great city of Windhelm. Nothing made Ulfric's Stormcloak feel more pride than buying those Thalmor and throwing them in his dungeon. Either way, the reaction of the Thalmor was sending a missive to each Jarl, announcing the will of the Thalmor to arrest the 50 members of the war band that raided their prison and the immediate return of their prisoners and their agents. The act that infuriated most of the Jarl, all of them replied that they have no knowledge of what the Thalmor are talking about. As for the Dragonborn, the Thalmor didn't really acknowledge him or his title publicly, which wasn't that unusual. The Dragonblood was the basis which built the 3 empires of men which they envied. In their pantheon, Auriel, who is also Akatosh, wouldn't give the men such a blessing if not for the manipulation of the time aspects, which Saint Alessia and her Alessian sect did. The old Alessian sect was the first force that discriminated against elves publicly across Tamriel, and is also the force that caused the septation of the 2 aspects of time, Auriel and Akatosh. As extremists, the Thalmor would even see the dragon blood in human veins as a mock of their divine right of Auriel, and if they had the power, they would have annihilated such blood. Either way, the Dragonborn is officially another enemy they can't do anything about, as he is the only method that may end this dragon crisis that they know nothing about. All this, and that made Skyrim feel like a boiling pot of issues which may explode any second, with the Nords feeling the excitement for the Dragonborn is with them, and the Empire staying on edge for any new unanticipated action he may take. After all, the wheel turns on the Dragonborn. It was strange how this phrase made more sense each time he took an action. The wheel is a metaphor meaning either the Orbis or the Fate. Either way, It is as if the whole world is now revolving around John. Are there more reports I need to worry about? John asked as he packed some books into a knapsack and tossed it to Lydia across the room. There are no reports that may interest you in particular, but it seemed that the Thalmor has made a few official complaints against our dearest Dragonborn. They described the attack as cowardly, and the rebels who committed such an act are nothing but rebellious heretics. Alina said. Empty words. John replied. When Ulfric offered to exchange the elves for the Nord prisoners they still have, the Thalmor said that the Almarai Dominion government does not negotiate with heretics. A bit heartless, I would think. Alina said. Of course they wouldn't. If they agreed to the exchange, then once they arrest any Talos worshippers, the Nords would round up any Thalmor nearby and exchange them with prisoners. John explained. I see. To be honest, I was thinking of it too. Alina made an understanding face. Anyway, dear wife, I'll be heading out for a small journey up the 7,000 steps. Yes, finally. I'll leave Winterhold to you then. Take care. Yes, husband. Deliver our respect to the honorable Greybeards. Yep, I'll do so. Don't forget to mention that. And that. Alina kept talking fervently about the history of the Greybeards and how John should behave in their presence. Wife, I wouldn't mind it if you have some idols, but don't go fangirling on a bunch of old dudes. It's gross. Who is your favorite politician once again? An 800 years old Dunmare grandma, right? Forget I said anything. John and Alina kissed before he went out of his house to run into the rest of his gang. Due to a prior arrangement, they were to band together with Jonrad and anyone strong enough to face any dragon attack that may threaten Skyrim during John's journey to High Hrothgar. With all said and done, John left his burden to them as he took his portal to Rift Inn with Lydia, and from there, he traveled west to Ivarstead on a flying flame hawk Atronak. Lydia became well accustomed to John's high functionality and manipulative nature, or so Alina made sure Lydia to be. Strange enough, Lydia proved to be one of the most level-headed people John ever met, as if she had some sort of resistance to his negative effects. She would remark sarcastically and stare at him coldly from time to time, but she was always silent and enduring, ready to carry his burdens. John would later learn that Alina put Lydia under a loyalty test, so she can never be swayed by John. It was as if Alina carved John is off-limits on Lydia's brain. Either way, the journey was relatively peaceful save for that time, when John wanted to sneak into the Redwater Den to acquire any information about the Folkihar clan. The Redwater Den is a drug den hidden beneath a dilapidated shack that deals in Redwater skooma, a very potent and powerful type of skooma that is made with blood refined in a blood spring deep in the den. John sensed so many vampires from various power levels fortifying the damn place, like a Dwemer vault. Even teleporting inside was impossible from all the magic imbued in the place. However, John managed to let his astral projection walk through the walls and eavesdropped on some conversation inside the den. Not much important was said, but there was surely a mention of two about the Folkihar castle. Word is that the vampires were to gather their forces in the next 4 months, which meant something is definitely happening. No more good information could be found, but John started writing down some pieces of paper on how the vampires make their skooma and possible methods to cure its addiction or perhaps destroy the surplus inside the den. John is not sure of his alchemy skill, but he can always ask Master Nurelian or Julliner for advice. The journey kept on for less than a day until he reached Ivarstead. Around 4 to 5 years ago, John visited this place and killed the innkeeper who would one day kill an acquaintance of his. Thankfully, the acquaintance lived till this day, and the innkeeper was different. Even though John still snooped around the inn in order to find something, and thankfully it was in the possession of the innkeeper. It was this sapphire claw, much like the golden claw, which blesses its surroundings with good fortune. This claw seemed to have wider magic, yet with a different effect. John could feel it quite easily now. John followed the traditional route to acquire this claw as well. Ivarstead village was haunted by a ghost that dwells in Shroud Hearthbarrow nearby. In actuality, It was nothing more than an elf alchemist who was turned mad by this barrow and the supposed riches inside it. John agreed to do some exorcism after talking to the innkeeper and delved into the old ruin with Lydia and Nefertiti. Killing the elf was a piece of cake, but John didn't take that direction. He rather captured the elf instead. He was a dark elf and former bandit from what John could tell. The man went absolute cuckoo. The Nordic ruins which once belonged to the dragon cult are mysterious and have a lot of traps that are either physical or mental. The elf who spent a year in this place now became some sort of a guardian to the barrow, as both his greed and the place played tricks on his fragile mind. This man even came up with a potion that made his skin give off a bluish glow like a ghost in order to trick the people that the barrow is haunted. John dispatched the elf after taking away the recipe to the phantom potion and returned to the innkeeper to report his success. The reward of this was the sapphire claw, which the foolish dark elf spent a whole year looking for it. John then returned to the barrow, used the sapphire claw to unlock the Hall of Stories to the deepest part of the barrow, and hoarded all the historical pieces of value like the old pottery and the stone steels depicting events from the First Era. After all, it belongs in a museum, his museum. John and Lydia ventured deeper into the barrow as Nefertiti was revealing the traps, and John was studying everything he found and discussing it with the uninterested Lydia. The most interesting part was the sapphire claw, in fact. It gave off a strange aura, and John went around it too much to understand how it works, but it still felt strange. After a few hours of delving deeper and unearthing other relics, John found new ideas on how the dragon cult crafted their artifacts and deciphered the magic of the sapphire claw. The sapphire claw, blessing of vigilance. The sapphire claw proved to be as valuable as the golden claw in some regards. It was blessed to reveal the malicious intentions in certain areas, making it invaluable when it comes to detecting spies and secret enemies. If John walked around Winterhold with such a thing on him, he may be able to root out every single spy in his territory. Either way, this invaluable item was kept in the cube as John searched deeper in the barrow. Eventually, John clashed with the old Draugrs and defeated them in a tough fight until he finally reached the treasure room of the barrow where a word wall was carved. Here fell Shield, maiden Valkyries who fought with courage, but was wrong to trust the power of a borrowed sword. John read the word wall and received a revelation on the word OV, which means trust. What was left now was John's favorite part, the treasures. He started rummaging around until he took out some ancient coins, a few weapons from the First Era, worn-out books, old magic items, and lastly, a strangely large white gem. The white gem was almost at the size of a soccer ball and was all white with a mystic luster. John didn't mean to touch it at first, but the moment he mindlessly did, he fell on the ground and started shouting as he held his head. A new hand touches the beacon. Listen, stop, hear me, and obey. A foul darkness has seeped into my temple. A darkness that you will destroy. Turn down the volume. Return my beacon to Mount Kilcreath, and I will make you the instrument of my cleansing light. Asterisk huff, asterisk huff, F-U-C-K. Chapter 536, Hi Hrothgar. Big thanks to our new patrons. At LRD Bonds, C rank. At Bruno Rubens Fernandez Kleiman, D rank. At Coiler McCoy, D rank. 7,000 steps, huh? That sure went fast. John exclaimed, then looked behind him to see Lydia, who was out of breath and barely keeping up. It was probably due to the air being thinner and the drop of the oxygen density the higher one goes. For normal people, exerting effort at such height is torturous, especially when one's lungs hurt so damn much. The mind would start going numb after doing something exhausting, and the efficiency of any person would go down a few notches. To voice masters, on the other hand, such a problem is easily solvable. Breathing techniques and managing the inner body may seem like fantasy methods to normal people, but if someone can find the capacity to breathe in the void and the chaos, one is already out of the normal people's realm. Energy breathing is simply a secret, which may seem like a very complicated method at first, but it is manageable with good enough understanding. Breathing through the skin is certainly the answer here, since the skin can efficiently take what it needs and dispel what it doesn't. The body knows itself best, after all. In the case of John and Lydia, it was a normal thing to happen. Even though John instructed her many times along the way, telling someone to breathe through their ears still sounds more manageable than breathing through the skin. Still, reaching the monastery was the ultimate goal of the journey, and the monastery they reached. John casually walking, Lydia begging for breath, and Nefertiti snuggling on John's shoulder. The three had all different emotions when they finally were about to step in High Hrothgar Monastery. But before going in, John had to drop the supplies Klimek entrusted him to deliver. Yep, another side quest. The sunlight was fading away, with an array of whirling mists covering the peak of the throat of the world and enshrouding it with mystery. It also thickened gloomier with John approaching the High Hrothgar Monastery step by step, as if it was heralding his most anticipated presence. A month since he was summoned, and a month took him to come, rude to the Greybeards, but necessary to the greater good. John would apologize for that if needed, but he would soon find an alternate story. An alternate story that took him from the beginning as he was about to touch the right side gate of the monastery. Wondrously, the gate opened itself, and from deep within the dark stone corridor came a young man in black robes and shaved head, a bit older than John and a tad shorter, but unleashed a strong presence that would pressure anyone with a weak heart. On the other hand, John returned double the presence with a provocative sneer. The young man was taken by utter surprise and acknowledged John with wide eyes. "A dragonborn indeed," he said in wonder. "Expecting me?" John asked. The young man nodded. "Indeed, you were singing that terrible song on your way up. That's when I heard you. Though, the masters must have heard you way before I did," the young man said. It was John's time to be taken aback. He knew that the monks who live in this monastery were the strongest NPCs in the game, but not to hear him from... Oh, wait. He now understood how they knew he killed a dragon near Whiterun from this high up the mountain. Super hearing? That's new. "Oh, where are my manners?" "This way," the young man said as he cleared the way for John and Lydia to walk in. Nefertiti nimbly jumped off John's shoulder and ran into the hall as if something had caught her attention. No one would mind a cat's behavior normally, but a cat that made it to High Hrothgar is no ordinary cat. "Eager to play already?" The young man laughed. The world is literally the playground of cats. No one can deny that. John spoke as if it is the most obvious thing in the world. "Oh, I agree. The man nodded while stroking his short beard. "I see you are a man of culture as well." John immediately took a liking on this man. Indeed, there is nothing as graceful as a cat. "Goodness me, who are you?" "Canute, Adept." "Dare, John. Feels like I have heard that name somewhere before." Adept Canute said. "It goes around." John dismissed the matter nonchalantly. It is rare to find a fellow brother in fluff in this harsh part of the world, yet both John and Canute were assessing one another as if two old strategists meeting for battle negotiations. John hated rivalry in any sort of manner other than in some trivial things, but when it comes to the Thursday John can become very cranky and would judge others extremely harshly. He is a dragonborn who has the inborn privilege of shouting like a dragon, and on top of that, he put a great effort to start using the Thursday way before he awakens as dragonborn. He understands the limits and the privileges he has, but deep down, shouting the Thursday is a birthright to him that he values dearly. An attempt to assess him in his own field of expertise hardly ends well. That made the whole journey to High Hrothgar more interesting, in fact. He may be a natural voice master and a prideful dragonborn, but he still believed that there is always a height beyond what he knows, and the Greybeards may have accumulated knowledge that would add to his arsenal. For example, they have some good ears, as it seemed. Canute led John through the dark corridor to a hall that was built all in black stone and minimally decorated. The hall occupied the heart of the monastery, And there where John could see Nefertiti finding a place for herself near a fire brazier on a stone platform. For elderly men in grand black robes were curiously watching the strange creature that slipped swiftly through their senses. Seeing John and John seeing them, the focus was diverted on each other as Canute excused himself and whispered for Lydia to follow him away from the masters. The Greybeards, the most ancient and most honored sect in Skyrim, made of monks who reside at the ancient monastery of High Hrothgar near the summit of the throat of the world. They are the most famous of the tongues, masters of the voice. They live in absolute silence in order to better attune themselves to the voice of the sky. They are a peaceful order, not using their Thursdayum to augment their martial skills, but to worship and honor the heaven as the way of the voice decreed. When the Greybeards speak, storms brew above High Hrothgar, and people are forced to evacuate due to the imminent danger of avalanches. When they even so much as speak the word Dovahkiin, it rumbles through the world and the mountains shake. Such is their power when they spoke to announce the greatness of Tiber Septim. With John facing the four masters of High Hrothgar for the first time in his life, they assessed him from head to toe as their speaker approached him. So, a Dragonborn appears at this moment in the turning of the age. The man who spoke was Master Arngeir. His size was quite short for a Nord, but his presence was something else entirely. It is as if the man was not speaking, but rather a force of nature barely trying to hold itself back. John couldn't help but smile vividly against such power, but he knew it is unwise to show disrespect in front of Skyrim's most respected. I, John Hild of Clan Firemane, known as John Dare, have come to answer the summons of the Greybeards. He spoke for the first time to them, without restricting his voice's abilities either. Arngeir looked at John with a hint of curiosity, as John's voice wasn't ordinary either. It had a lot of raw power, just like a stream, but John had an excellent ability to hold himself back that was naturally born within him as Dragonborn. Even Master Arngeir had been through thick and thin to reach such a point of restriction. There is the gift. Kind has blessed your tongue indeed. Tell me, how long have you been using the voice? Arngeir said, 6 years, but I practiced for 2 years before it, and learned the Dovahzul at an early age. John said. Angrier and the rest of the Greybeards showed concerned faces. Didn't you know that practicing the voice at such a tender age may have costed you your voice or even your life? Arngeir asked. I have known of my ability to shout since the beginning. That you are a Dragonborn. Yes. So, Dragonborns know what they are. That was not recorded before. Arngeir wondered. Our predecessors never recorded that Tiber Septim knew before he was called, and Riemann never knew until he shouted the savages of Akavir at the Pale Pass. John smiled at the remarks. Just a prophecy of a moss priest, he said. Arngeir looked deeply into John and remembered something. Firemane, could it be that you are the child who caused the chaos between the clans 19 years ago? I can take the blame for many things in this world and a few other worlds, but not really when I was but a year old. John smiled wryly. Oh, indeed. Arngeir nodded with a light smile. But the child is truly you. It was unwise to stand in the way of fate. We let a disciple down that day, and he shouted those Nords to their senses. Skyrim was loud then, as it is loud today. John heard those words and contemplated on them, seeking to know what the Greybeards truly are and gaze at the depth of their ways. A few words reveal what men are, and for those Greybeards who rarely say anything, this was a historical moment worthy of studying. John was way above curious when it came to those people. So listening and speaking are two different ways. John asked. Arngeir stroked his beard and nodded. Obviously, you just listen maybe a little, but if you truly listen, you won't need to speak. Those who say that if speaking is of silver, then listening is of gold, may have underestimated the wisdom. They spoke else they have not spoken and kept listening. Arngeir chuckled lightly, and the other 3 masters showed slight smiles. John barely understood that this was a grandpa joke, only they found funny somehow. He had to try and listen to it, but it would be anticlimactic in such a moment. Can I learn how to listen? John asked. But we invited you to teach you how to speak. Arngeir replied. Anyone can speak, even my cat. Anyone can listen, even you can. Then how to listen? It is not a question that can be answered by speaking, even though, if I spoke the answer. I see. John nodded, as he just learned something valuable beyond anything he knew of the voice. To listen is not to speak. It is truly basic. Arngeir refused to say it, but gave John an obvious hint. Still, what happens when listening? Listening and speaking are two ways of the Thursday They're not clearly the same thing, but they complete and complement each other if followed right. The Thursday is a tonal magic. Each word said is that of the language of the dragons, but this language transcends even the dragons, for it may be attributed to them, but is not actually theirs. The language is the language of the sky. Dragons are the dwellers of the sky, thus it can be their native language one way or the other. This opens the door for many methods of understanding and seeing a lot of wisdom, a wisdom that even the dragons do not possess. Such a height. John thought he may learn something new, but to find that he was but a frog in a well with all those heroics under his belt, he was nearly about to burst out laughing, if not for the wariness of showing disrespect. You have learned something. Does it satisfy you? Arngeir asked. If I beg to learn more, would you teach me? John asked back. I take your answer as a no then. Still, I have taught you all I can. Arngeir said. Indeed, I guess I would understand less if I know more. Arngeir's face brightened up for John's last remark. Many can reach the level of this understanding, but a few can think such as that. People always ask to know more, but do they truly listen? Of course, they can't be blamed if they don't properly listen, as not all who talk can properly speak. In each sentence spoken, a listener must learn. Then what if the sky itself speaks? It is hard to listen to the sky properly, so one must learn how to listen in a new way. The Greybeards live on a high mountain, not for the reason to be closer to the gods or the sky, as some may claim, but the actual reason is to stay away from the noises of the world. They are peaceful men who do not wish to be disturbed unless in the times of great need, where they must perform their duty, such as the time where the Nords are truly endangered or the emergence of a dragonborn. By listening, they naturally come to learn the words of the sky, which eventually leads to their sense of hearing being keen, resulting in their voices being that of the storm. John has spent almost half of his life trying to speak the voice while all he had to do is just listen. Sigh. All of a sudden, speaking became so distasteful. John said, Isn't it still necessary? Arngeir asked. Sadly. Then let us hear you speak. Give us a taste of your voice, Dragonborn. Chapter 537. High-profile pain in the ass. Skyrim has taken its fair share of trouble as of late. Year 4 E201 has been not kind to many families since the Stormcloak movement turned into a civil war and the dragons became insanely active doing minor attacks in the wild. A few caravans and patrols encountered the dragons as of late and reported high casualties, but the attacks were all over the place. It was as if the dragons were avoiding directly going against cities and towns for some reason. While John was on his journey across Skyrim, side-questing and visiting the Greybeards, the ones who were left to oversee the dragon investigation were none other than his family and friends. Jelinar was responsible for internal security and anti-espionage. Wulfur was keeping the places outside the city in check, while Alina traveled south to where the dragons attacked, seeking further information while being accompanied by Isha, Mirren, and Miranda. This lineup of Winterhold's finest was all it took to uncover parts of the situation of dragons. It became very clear after Alina was attacked 2 times by assassins after she visited the dragon attack sites and barely managed to capture one alive. Under her torturous gaze, the assassin spoke words that made no sense, such as masters, blood vengeance, and a certain Helmer. 3 pieces of information that meant absolutely nothing, but why would anyone associate themselves with the dragon attacks and try to ambush whoever comes there? Alina divined many ideas from the surroundings and from the souls of the dead, but things proved to be rather complicated with her coming across more questions than answers. For all we know, someone has been employed by the dragons to cover their tracks. Alina is said in the family meeting during one night in the tower. Not many were present there other than the family's senior members and John's trustworthy aides. Tormund Firemane seemed concerned more than usual with such news. He tried to remember anyone that may harbor such a foul intention to work with dragons, but in all his years, he never came across such a thing. Maybe like those dragon worshippers from olden times? Hilda asked. Let's not jump to conclusions, sister. Assuming there are still remnants from the old dragon cult is a bit far-fetched. Scotty denied the possibility. John also didn't assume such a thing may happen, but this doesn't mean it may not be true. Alina sided with Hilda's assumption. If a clan or two survived since the first age of dragons, and they had the dragon veneration and the heritage, this may make it possible. But that would make them older than any other clan, older and more powerful than the oldest ones. It is just a possibility, but there can be any number of explanations. Maybe a clan that allied themselves with dragons or something along the lines. In the end, we can't really be sure about it. After this discussion and a couple more, the meeting couldn't reach a single decision about what to do other than waiting on the defense. Not a nice stance looking at how Winterhold does things, but the safest for the time being. Still, it was wise of them to point fingers towards the dragons since they're the most recent enemy to encounter. During this time, the news was heard about the Dragonborn gathering a war band and fighting pirates than a week after the assault on Northwatch Keep. The ones who had to clean up the mess were the Dare Dragon Company, but judging by their dire relationship with the Thalmor, they only had to deny knowledge of the Dragonborn's actions and publicly implore him to follow the legal means in the times of war. The bullshit was wide and clear in the DDC statement. It was nice to see Winterhold and the company back to their lawless behavior with the other powers, and despite the love/hate relationships they're involved in with all the political and business forces, they were the ones that were sought out to interfere with many problems and solve all the big troublesome situations in Skyrim. It was safe to say that in politics and business, the company was doing all the side quests which involved opening trade routes for neutral businesses and negotiating peace between the east and the west of Skyrim. Then the investment bank of Winterhold and the Dare Insurance were publicly open for business not long after John's departure to High Hrothgar. Traders who traveled between Winterhold and the other holds found a delicious chance in making insurance contracts with the company, while aspiring businessmen took loans to start partnerships even outside Winterhold. Slowly but smoothly, the company started expanding in the Pale and Eastmarch, even entering the cities of Dawnstar and Windhelm. During all that, Alina was busy between her the minimal management she had to oversee instead of John and her job in the College of Winterhold. On one fateful day, the apprentice class of the newcomers was called for a lecture by the slow and tranquil Master Talfdir, and Alina was assigned as his assistant in that class. A notable number of students were present, as Talfdir was one of the most famous alteration masters in the magic community of Tamriel. In the notebook she carries, Alina kept a small parchment where John noted to her a series of events that he predicted to happen, and in a strange development, they were all unfolding today. Master Talfdir came up and started to mindlessly give a lecture on the primary practices of magic and the safety methods in magic usage, causing the class to get stirred up a little. Even though most of them are novices and apprentices, they were all hoping to start shooting magic around like fools. A certain dark elf girl from a Telvanni lineage, a boastful Khajiit with dangerous tendencies, and a large nervous Nord young man. The three were taking most of the attention and complained when Master Talfdir started talking about safety first. Eagerness must be tempered with caution, or else disaster is inevitable. Talfdir stated in front of the impatient apprentices. But we've only just arrived here. You've no idea what any of us are capable of. Why not give us a chance to show you what we can do? A student argued back. Talfdir sighed, took in a breath, and looked across the students who showed the unhealthy behavior of haste. He wanted to take another opinion on the matter, so he looked around him and saw Alina present. Knowing her, she would probably give them the scolding they deserve. Teacher Alina, how do you think we should proceed? Tolfter asked. Alina glanced at the old man, not trying to realize how this situation unfolded to where he would request her opinion. According to the parchment John wrote, she should stand in a visible distance from Tolfter right beside the students, and when that is done, Tolfter may actually ask for her opinion. Putting the thoughts aside, Alina cleared her voice and replied. Eagerness in the arcane arts is a quality to be praised, but those mages who ended up killing themselves were all eager as well. Not some fools who wished to meet the wrong sides of their fireballs. Take Master Tolfter's advice and hone your lousy basics. With a magus of his caliber offering you priceless guidance, you would reach heights of which you have never dreamt. Alina said in cold indifference with an annoyed hint in her tone. Alina's moodiness is that of the unpredictable winds. One moment she is as sweet as a breeze, and the next, she is calling the thunderstorm. She never tolerated disrespect to the masters of the college, and despite her excellent knowledge, she was the complete opposite of John when it came to teaching. John would make the one in front of him feel like a child who is watching fireworks for the first time, while secretly giving them the right amount of information they need to know, thus his lectures, while rare, are singular in popularity. Alina, on the other hand, is academic to the bone. She would hammer her students with the harshest vocabulary she can muster, making her a scourge among the teachers who is only sought out by the elite students. Seeing Alina scolding the toddlers who recently joined the college, Master Tolfter became concerned. Even John would become concerned, his notes strictly instructed to stick to short answers acting as either passive or negative, but Alina wouldn't be Alina if she didn't add some Alinaism. The newcomers were well aware of who that woman that covers her face is. Yet despite that, they were all in agreement that they needed to jump into the practical first. From that point, Master Tolfter thought about humbling them a notch. All right, let's settle down. I suppose we can try something practical. In continuing with our theme of safety, we'll start with wards. Wards are protective spells that block magic. I'll teach you all a ward, and we'll see if you can successfully use it to block spells, all right? Tolfter said and turned to Alina. Teacher Alina, would you mind helping me with the demonstration? Of course, Master Tolfter. Wards are the most important offhand spells. They are practically the shields of mages. Once one masters the ways of the wards, one will be able to cast various types of wards. The most common is the magic-resisting ward. There's also the magic-reflecting ward, the magic-absorbing ward, the physical ward, and the legendary barrier magic. Some of the college's elites can call upon the special reflection ward and send back an arrow shot at them. Alina said as she stepped in front of Master Tolfter. Should we start from the scratches and exchange a few spells? Yes, that would be for the best. Tolfter replied nonchalantly. Stand there and cast a ward, Teacher Alina. Alina walked to the center of the forefront of the Hall of Elements and gracefully cast a ward that was double her size and covered her from the front to the back. Her performance was way over the top and caused the onlookers to stand in awe. Surely they know how to cast ward spells, but not to that degree of perfection where the ripples on the surface of the spell moved very slowly. This performance was almost as if she was displaying a warding barrier, a kind of spell that is considered an overkill even in the rank of expert mages. Tolfter admired Alina's spell too, but anticlimactically, he cast a simple fire bolt towards it. His fire bolt dissolved on the surface of Alina's ward without a sound. Well, I think this is an excellent start. I'd like you all to continue practicing with wards, please. I think perhaps, Tolfter said as he was wrapping up the subject, but he was interrupted right away. Master, can we see that one more time? We'd like to take more notes. A very young student raised her voice and spoke in anticipation. Looking at her, this seemed to be Beth. She was attending the newcomer classes to socialize and learn anything new. Her age group was certainly rare around the college, but her excellence was not to be denied. Tolfter was about to turn her request down, but what followed hers were more requests from the other students hoping to see more magic. Novices may come from different origins, but they all share eagerness and admiration towards magic. Well, we can manage something. Teacher Alina, I will cast a ward spell, and you shall strike it with a moderate spell. All right. Alina and Talfdir exchanged roles, which spiced up the mood a bit. He cast a normal ward, and she browsed her mind for normal magic that shouldn't be too harmful. Using sun magic won't even harm anyone. The only harm it does is causing some tan skin. She stressed forward a hand and raised it up. Smite, making the runes of the spell become visible in their magic circle. Alina used the adept level, Smite, a spell that is devastating towards the undead. It was akin to the sun ray breaking through the ceiling and shining a spotlight upon its target. Talfdir raised his ward up and received the magic effortlessly. Good choice, Teacher Alina. Let's stick to the restoration school, shall we? It would be an excellent idea to make the students learn the sun spells first rather than anything dangerous. Indeed, Master Talfdir. Let's go. An absurd exchange continued between Alina and Talfdir. When he started with a firebolt, and she replied with Smite, escalated to rather dangerous spells. Sunfire, Talfdir, Starfall, Alina, Vampire's Bane, Talfdir, Light Slash, Alina, Repel the Dead, Talfdir, Lady of Mercy, Alina, Guardian of the Living, Talfdir, Light of the Nine, Alina. Blinding rays of light flew all over the place. Master Talfdir and Alina felt the need of exchanging some pointers on such a cold day as it made the blood run hot. As soon as they were satisfied, they exchanged words of compliment. This was surely refreshing, Dame Alina. I haven't done that much effort for years. Foo-foo-foo. Indeed, Master Talfdir. Exerting effort is surely beneficial. I am sure the juniors have managed to grasp the essence of what is necessary to be an excellent mage from this exquisite exchange. Alina said as she turned around. Mouths agape and skin going pale, most of the students were at the limits of their wits as the blinding exchange a moment ago took them by surprise. Well, I'm sure they learned something, anything? Alina spoke quietly to Master Talfdir. Well, I hope this becomes more of an encouragement for you young ones. The path to enlightenment is not easy. Also, the anti-undead magic spells are quite popular and easy to master. You should use them to spar since they will not cause you harm. Talfdir said, You are quite right, Master Talfdir. It will also make Master Colette very happy now that people would be interested in using restoration magic. We should suggest adding restoration training duels to the course. Aside from some tan and skin burns, nothing can't be healed. Indeed. Well then, I guess that's it for today. Leave your questions for Teacher Alina. For the next lesson, I think perhaps we're ready to begin exploring some of the various applications of magic throughout history. The college has undertaken a fascinating excavation in the ruins of Sarthal nearby. It's an excellent learning opportunity. I suggest we meet there in a few days and see what awaits us inside. That's all for now, thank you. The class was dismissed with Master Talfdir walking away and Alina taking over. She haughtily stood over the class looking down on everyone and everything. Understandably, the ruins of Sarthal are sacred Nordic grounds which would stir a lot of trouble from the locals if treated with disrespect, thus the attendance won't be mandatory. If any of you want to register for the historical excavation site, please write your names together in a parchment and pass them over to me. I would be staying inside the Mysticism Department office till the afternoon, but beyond that, I don't want any of you following me in the city. Questions? Good. Talfdir may have perfectly dodged all the troublesome questions by passing them to Alina, whose personality is too nasty when it comes to dealing with apprentices. She wrapped it all in a minute and walked out of the class. Not many students dare to follow her for questions save for one curious Cagiate. Teacher Alina, this one has some questions. The Cagiate spoke. Speak. Alina replied without sparing him a look. This one's name is Jargo. It has been very long since Jargo started studying magic, and Jargo aims to be the best. Jargo said, You're aiming high, huh? Best of luck. Alina looked at him in a funny way. Thank you. There is much for Jargo to aim for. There's skill in magic, there is charm, and there's a strong will. Jargo will be successful. Of this, there is no doubt. All right, then. Teacher Alina, wait. Jargo has a few more questions. Be quick. Jargo is a natural investigator, and he found out that the best mage in his age group is called John Dare. Can Teacher Alina help Jargo be better than John Dare? Jargo asked. Alina took a few moments of realization to wrap her head around what Jargo said. The Cagiate is surely competitive way beyond his own good. All right, Jargo. Alina nodded and continued. But Teacher Alina has a question for you. By all means. Jargo complied. Good. What happens when a Cagiate is struck by 100 MP of shock magicka? She asked. Jargo was about to give it a thought, but he quivered badly and shook his head as he saw Alina aiming a hand towards his feet. Well, same as anything else. BZZZT. According to Alina, John's only competition is her, so anyone else better get in line. With the crazy Cagiate out of her way, she was about to step over him when another figure popped up out of nowhere and started poking the unconscious Cagiate with a twig. Poor kitty. John would be angry with you if he knew you hit a cat. Rude Cagiates do not count, Alina replied. Why are you here, Joel? Can't we wife check on each other from time to time? Alina covered her hand with shock magicka once again. All right, sheesh woman. Joel retreated away as she took out a small scroll from her pocket. A report came in from Jalmarch. She said, It is regarding the agents we planted around the ruins of Ustengrav. We managed to ambush her. Her? Alina asked. That woman. The one that tried to steal the Dragonstone from us in Whiterun. Del something. Wait, you captured Delphine. Alina was surprised. Yes, she's being shipped to Winterhold on the Iron Maiden at the moment. Prior to his leave, John assigned Team Zero to guard the ruins of Ustengrav where the founder of the Greybeards, Jurgen Windcaller, was buried. Delphine would appear there to steal another item from the Dragonborn, and John was on her. With an ambush, she fell to the excellent talents in Team Zero. Right now, Winterhold has managed to bring down another high-profile pain in the ass. That you're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.